Okay, good evening, everyone. It's 7 o'clock, so I can see that we may still have a few folks entering, but otherwise we have Counsel here. I'm just going to see if Councillor McMath, are you in this meeting yet? Just so that we can...
I am. I'm just getting home from work. I'm just logging onto my laptop. I'm hearing audio on my phone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Sometimes it just doesn't display everyone right away. Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'll now call our special council meeting of April the 13th to order. Thank you, everyone, for joining us virtually in this way. I wish to begin tonight's meeting by formally recognizing that we are meeting virtually on the unceded lands of the Souq and Shantu nations. And first off tonight is approval of the agenda. So Council, we do have our agenda for our special meeting in front of you, or you'll have it on your device, as well as a supplementary information package. So I'll look for Council to approve the agenda with the inclusion of the supplemental info. Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded by Councillor St. Pierre. All those in favor? And none opposed. Okay, thank you. So I see here there's public question and comment period. However, this is a bit of a different meeting because our applicants, most I think of the members present would be related to the applicants that would be presenting. So I think in terms of public input, I guess my question to Council, is it necessary at this stage, given that we would need to hear all the presentations and we will be doing those in order that listed on the agenda? So just Councillor St. Pierre.
It seems somewhat redundant, but I was curious as to whether or not we could allow for that comment to happen when the presentations are made in some way, or would that just extend things unduly?
It would extend it unduly. So what I would suggest is that we just move the public portion, the question and comment period, till after all presentations, so that the applicants have that chance, and then to present, and then any questions about process or the like could be asked at that time. And so the way that we're going to go through this here is basically every applicant has 5 minutes to make their presentation. And so for anyone that's joined us recently, if you could please mute your device and also turn your video off. What will happen is when we call on your presentation, at that time we'll ask you to unmute and turn your camera back on so that you can address Council and we can all see you. Thank you. So sort of in our discussions here is that we'll go through the order one at a time. Applicants will have 5 minutes maximum to present. So in conversations with Ms. Temple, our staff support here, Ms. Temple will, at the 4-minute mark, will say 4 minutes. And then at 5 minutes, we'll say something like that's 5 minutes, and then we'll end your presentation. So if you're sharing screens, just please note that the 5-minute is final. We won't be extending time on that. And so it's just to keep the time ticking because we have so many presentations. After we have the applicant presentation, then I'll turn to Council for any questions. Questions pertaining to the application specifically, though. I know this is a wonderful time to learn more about the organizations in the community and what they do over and beyond, but in the essence of time, I'm going to ask that you stick to the application questions specifically. And then, of course, if you have questions or would like more information about what an organization is doing, I encourage you to follow up at a later time with the group directly to have those questions answered. When we hear all of the presentations tonight, Council will then have 2 options. Firstly, we're going to look at the time and have a time check as to when that is. And then Council will either deliberate on the applications tonight, or we will postpone them to another special Council meeting time. And that way we want to be present to listen to all the great work that you're doing, but I also think that we need to be in good good form to deliberate over these excellent projects, and extending the meeting into the late hours tonight may not provide the best outcome. What our staff will do to the applicants is we'll let you know in the morning if we've either deliberated and what that outcome is, or if council has rescheduled the deliberation decisions to a future date. So that way you'll know either way when we will come back to make decisions. It just depends on how the time goes. I'm looking at 26 applications and 5 minutes of presentations for each one, and also time for questions, and also taking technology into it doesn't always cooperate. Let's just put it that way. Okay, what I will ask council though, just off the top here, I'm aware that some of you do have a conflict of interest with some of the organizations. So it'll be helpful as we, you know, right when I say read out Amber Academy, that would be your time to declare the conflict. You will have to leave the meeting though. And then before you leave, just let us know, do you want us to phone, email, or text you so that we can get you back into the meeting when it's done. So we'll just confirm which method is best before you depart. So does that work for members of council? Council St. Pierre?
Are we needing to step out during presentations?
That's my understanding. Yeah, that's correct.
During the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted that confirmed.
Yeah. So during the presentations as well as the deliberations that will follow. Okay. Any other questions from council? Any ideas for improvement? Okay, we'll give this a go. So first up, item number 1 is Amber Academy. So first off, I'll ask council if there's a conflict.
Order.
Yes.
Our community grant applications report, are we not discussing that first? I just had some questions that I wanted to discuss for that.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, sorry, I just saw 5.1, so I jumped right to that. Go ahead. What's your question, Councillor Logans?
Well, I just wanted to know from staff through you, Mayor Tait, if all of the applications we received were included, or if some were not included.
Okay, can I have staff answer that, please?
Just waiting for things to come on there. Through your worship, I believe, I can double check with Ms. Chen, but I believe all applications were submitted. And I just also wanted to clarify, at the time the agenda was published, there was a couple of former recipients that hadn't submitted their final 2019 reports, and I just wanted to clarify that those have been submitted since the agenda was published here. So those all applicants on here are eligible to be considered for a grant.
We're happy with that term, but I did notice that there were several applications that don't meet eligibility criteria of our grant policy, in terms of them either running a deficit in their organization or that they're asking for 100% funding in their program.
Okay, so maybe we can have some comment here, because my understanding is that there is no restrictions on whether the deficit is there, and unless I'm missing that in the policy, and that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, and then your other question was on 100% funding, the full expense and not just partial. Is that correct? Can I get?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because our bylaw does say that like the criteria is that it shows secure funding other than the District of Sooke, and then sound financial management.
Okay, so I'm looking under assessment criteria. So for council, this is section 4. Okay, so consideration, I guess this is where it comes into language. Consideration of community grants will be based on the following application shows secured funding sources other than from the district and has demonstrated sound financial administration management. I think that's when we get into the deliberation part, that would be something that council would need to hear, take into consideration at that time. And then in terms of a question to an applicant, it's potential that when their applications were submitted, perhaps other updates or other funding sources may come apparent. So we can also ask applicants to comment on that or get that clarifying question at the time. Does that help, Councillor Logans?
That does help, thank you. I would just urge any applicants that are coming forward tonight that if you fall into those categories, I hope you have good answers, because we're over budget on these funding requests.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Logans. Other questions from council on the staff report here that's in front of you? Councillor St. Pierre?
Just like through your worship to staff, one of the other criteria was that we not be crossing jurisdictions. That is to say, we're not taking up funding that should be offered, for example, the province or the federal government. I was just curious about we have many applications for various types of mental health, and I think it's extraordinarily important. I just wanted confirmation that there isn't actually funding available through the province or the feds, but specifically the province, obviously.
Would staff have that information at this time?
Through your worship, yeah, I mean, it would depend on the application. We could probably address that as your questions are coming out with the application. Like, you know, I think these applicants have applied based on the criteria of the policy. So if council's not 100% sure if there's other funding, I believe that your applicant could answer those questions. But in our initial review, we thought these were the applications that should be put forward for council consideration and further clarification.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gray. Okay, anything further from members of council? Okay, so then I would like to first invite a representative from the Amber Academy, please. And this is for the Amber Academy Youth Fine Arts Society. So please welcome. Hi.
Hi, do you have video and audio on me?
Yes, so we have both working just fine, and I'll turn it over to you, and our staff will start the timer when you start speaking. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Hi, oh my gosh, I haven't seen most of you for, seems like forever, so it's great to see you guys, even virtually, albeit. As you guys probably are all aware, Amber Academy is operating, it's our 4th year now, running our after-school program for youth. That is an empowerment program for kids in kindergarten right through grade 12, and we use the arts as the fine arts as a mandate for our youth empowerment. The funding we're requesting this year is primarily for equipment for a film and event videography class. This is kind of basically pivotal, well, our pivot program, how we've managed to deal with the COVID pandemic this year. As you know, Amber Academy has an annual, our biggest thing is our annual spring musical show. And obviously we can't do an in-person audience. So this year we've actually shifted our program so that instead of doing what we normally do, we actually introduced a new program this year to teach children about how to do film development, or sorry, film and videography, so that those children can actually still be a part of this overall program. It's kind of an encompassing program. When we do our musicals, we have our art students do all the sets and props. We have the costumes and fashion design students. They help with building the costumes. And this year we've got a videography class that are going to be actually taking the lead in filming and presenting our production to an online audience. This is all under COVID protocol, safety and protocols that we have developed. There's actually a division within WorkSafe BC. It's called Act Safe, and they're a group that actually have taken the responsibility on them and working as a liaison with WorkSafe BC for COVID, developing its own recommended safety protocols for the performing arts to deliver any kind of performances within the COVID-19 protocols. So we're kind of following their guidelines as how we can deliver this, keeping within all the other health and safety guidelines and limitations. So what we're hoping to do is get this equipment. We've already received funding from another source that has basically provided us with one camera, one tripod, and the laptop that the kids will do the software, the film editing on. We're asking the District of Souq to provide funding so that we can buy 2 more cameras, 2 more tripods, and a carrying case for each of the video cameras. It's been a crazy year. COVID has not been easy to work with, but we've managed to keep our program going. Normally we have, give or take, 90 students on average each year. This year we've managed to be able to continue our program. We're still serving more than 70 kids that have actually joined our program this year. It's been a lot of work. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to get up and running just because of everything that was happening back in September. Nonetheless, our board of directors, we came together and we went and did some extra fundraising to secure additional funding in the hopes that we would be able to get up and running. And then since we have been running, we've been doing a lot of extra fundraising as per usual. Like we always do a lot of that, but it's been a little bit more work for the volunteers and the board member this year. But we're kind of happy. I mean, it's been stressful. I won't say that it wasn't, but yeah, so it's great. We're always keeping up to date on the evolving provincial health order, making sure that our children and our program and volunteers and staff are within those mandates.
That's 4 minutes.
Okay, so in addition to what we're doing right now with this one class, we've actually been able to introduce 3 new classes into our program this year. So in addition to the event videography class, we've been able to introduce the advanced acting class, which is specifically for teenagers. Average age is 13 to 17, which is a really hard age group to capture. And we've been able to do that this year, even with COVID happening, as well as a photography class, which has been really well received with the youth in our community. So I think that pretty much covers it. One last thing is that we are aware of the ever-changing protocols and stuff. If there is a lockdown and we have to interrupt our program again immediately, the equipment that we're asking for funding for will continue to be retained by Amber Academy as permanent teaching equipment for this class. This is a class we're going to continue offering even beyond COVID. So not just this year, it's not a one-time thing. It's going to be continually used eventually or repeatedly throughout the term. And also there are a couple of applicants in this, other people that have applied for funding this year that I think would be great opportunities for Amber Academy to work with them with this equipment.
Okay, thank you. So that means that the 5 minutes have run out. So thank you very much for providing a lot of information in the time allotted. So I'll ask Counsel for questions. I'll start off with Councillor Beddoes, please.
Yeah, this is question to Ms. Dunn. If you were only to receive half of the request, say like 33,000, what's your fallback position? Will you, I know you're saying you need to buy a couple of cameras. Could you get by with just buying one camera, or do you have a fallback position? Is it all or nothing?
And you'll need to unmute Ms. Dunn to respond. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So we have one camera that the students, one camera, one tripod that the students are using right now. As you know, with COVID, sharing equipment is not ideal. The more kids you have sharing the same pieces of equipment, the more sanitizing it is. And of course, when you put the chemicals and the sanitizer on, like the eyepiece of a video camera, the rubber, it deteriorates it. So ideally, what we're trying to do is get 3 cameras so that we can share the equipment between 2 students, sharing it for what we have right now. Hopefully next year, when COVID's not as much of a risk and hopefully things are a little bit more manageable, even if we are able to bring in more kids into this class, which I'm hopeful and believe that we will be able to bring in more students, sharing equipment will not be as much of a concern. But nonetheless, to answer your question, yes, we will still go forward.
Okay.
We can still do that. It's just that ideally right now with COVID.
Understood. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Bateman, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi, Kelly. Just following up on that. So you've asked for the equipment in Appendix A, which comes to a grand total of $4,050.
That's correct.
And you put in a request for $7,000, likely knowing, as you experienced in 2019, that we're only going to give you a portion of your full request. What would you do with that extra $3,000?
The extra funding would go to cover materials, costume, supplies for the program, for that particular production that we're planning to do with the children for this spring. This would be set pieces, lumber that we might need to buy to build specific set pieces, which is always reusable as well. Anything that we build or construct, costume-wise, sets or props, it's not a one-show anything. It's always reused for other things, or upcycled, as you will, for other events.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
I'm having trouble with my equipment tonight, so this hand seems I will not be able to lower the hand at this point unless someone can do that for me. Thank you.
Okay, I'll ask our staff support to lower the hand. Thank you. Any other questions for members of council? Okay, when I do, like when we're like this and I can see all of you, then you can also just physically raise your hand because I can see you that way. So that's good to keep in mind. Okay, thank you, Ms. Dunn. You know, at this point, you're free to leave the meeting, or you can stay on and hear other presentations. And as noted earlier, our staff will follow up and advise what our outcome from tonight is. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our next presenter tonight is 5.2. We have Bike Victoria Society. So I'd like to welcome our next presenter, please. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, please go ahead. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Hi, my name is Justine Bokanek, and I am the Bike Skills Coordinator here at the Bike Victoria Society. Bike Victoria Society is a nonprofit organization run out of the city of Victoria, and we serve all municipalities in the Greater Victoria area, including municipality district of Sooke. Our organization basically works with folks on advocacy, education, and celebrations of all things bike. We've been running the Go by Bike Week for over 25 years now, and also our Bike Skills program for 20 years now. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Council for letting me present tonight, and for your previous support in our organization. Tonight, I'm interested in partnering with the District of Souq in order to offer our in-school cycling education program. I believe that our program, which is called Everyone Rides, grade 4 and 5, is one that will directly benefit the youths in your community. Everyone Rides, grades 4 and 5 aims to provide children in grades 4 and 5 with safety awareness and practical cycling skills to safely ride their bicycles. We provide theoretical and on-bike practice sessions at the schools where kids get safe, first-hand experience in traffic scenarios, and learn bike handling skills. By the end of the course, students are able to identify the benefits of taking active transportation to school, both from an environmental perspective and for reasons related to mental and physical health. In a teacher survey that we sent out at the end of our 2020 program, including the Souq School of Poirier Elementary, 71% of the teachers who reported using our survey said that they witnessed improved cycling skills among their students, and 76% reported that they have witnessed an increased awareness of cycling rules and safety among the students. After reading the Transportation Master Plan for the District of Souq, I see that there's specific wording around improving cycling conditions in the district. I believe my application will help us work towards these goals by providing the cycling education aspect of improving cycling conditions in the district. With your support, This would help us cover costs like instructor time, equipment rental, maintenance and delivery fees, travel costs, coordination fees, and advertising costs. We were able to offer the program, as I said, back in 2020 to Poirier Elementary, and that served about 60 students. And then we've actually been able to book courses at Sooke Elementary and Casinos Elementary, which will serve over 175 students. We've successfully developed a COVID safety plan that align with the provincial health order and Via Sport's return to sport phase 2 guidelines. I'd like to thank Counsel. As you can tell, we are very excited and I believe in this program, and I hope you're able to support our proposal.
Great, thank you very much for joining with us tonight in your presentation. First question goes to Councillor Logans, please.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation tonight and for your application. I am a bit, I have a couple of questions, about your application. One would be that since we are not able to fund some of the costs you mentioned, the ineligible costs in our policy are for the bike skills coordinator, any transportation accommodation fees, or I don't know if accommodation falls in that, but transportation, the coordinator fees and such. So just trying to pull up your budget, because with your budget, I wasn't quite sure how much you were asking and what it was for, and if it would actually fall under the category that we need it to fund you.
Sure. So we are also working, we've gotten funding also from the BC Gaming Grant, so that's got our funding matched. So I don't think that the actual allocation has been made yet, so we would try to shuffle around to make sure all of our fees that or all the money that we're asking for falls under Soup's guidelines. So if that's not travel, then maybe it'll be for our maintenance fees or equipment rental and purchasing materials.
So your gaming grants, I believe, do cover coordination fees, but with your, yeah, I'm just trying to do the math here to see if it is 50-50, and it's $1,300 that you're asking for us?
Yes, thank you.
So it's $740 for the contractor, education manager, $320, bike skills coordinator, $280, and transportation is $240. Oh darn, I didn't do the math, but that's over $1,300. So if we weren't able to fund you the full amount, where would that remaining money come from that you need to run the program?
So as a nonprofit, we get a majority of our funding just from a variety of funding sources. So we'd be able to make up the difference if we weren't able to get the full $1,300 from you folks. We're going to be running the program regardless, but we obviously prefer your support.
Okay, and one last question. Is this open to homeschool students, or is it only for students of School District 62? I
don't see why it wouldn't be open to homeschool students. We have students who are currently doing like hybrid schooling, so they'll mostly be doing like online and then coming in, I think, for a few days. I'm not really sure how it works, but we work specifically with the school board, so school district. We're open to inviting homeschool students, but I coordinate with principals and administrations at schools.
Okay, and they're not funding any of this?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll probably just jump in and say, Mandy Cure, if you could please turn your video off, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Logans. Can everyone hear me at the moment? No? Okay, sorry, when I was speaking, for some reason yeah, it wasn't working. So Ms. Kier, who just joined us, can you please turn your video off? And we will ask, you can turn it back on again when it's your turn to speak. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor St. Pierre, please.
Just curious as to whether or not your funding would extend to offering your programs for not just grade 4 and 5, but other grades as well?
So we have designed the program specifically for the sort of grades 3 to 6 age group. So if there are schools that have third graders that would like to join, for example, 3-4 split classes, we definitely encourage them to join the program. In elementary schools in BC, we don't have 6th graders usually. So it's usually, yeah, it's designed for the upper level elementary school students.
And just to clarify, you wouldn't need additional funding to be able to include those students, correct?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from members of council? Okay, thank you very much for, okay, Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Well, just to be clear, I don't know if you answered this from Councillor Logan's, but School District 62, are they, have you approached them, or are they?
For funding?
Yeah.
No, we haven't approached them for funding, but I guess we could.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much for joining with us tonight. And like the previous speaker, you can feel free to stay on, or our staff will be following up with you either way. Okay?
Okay,
thank you
very much.
Okay, so our next item up is 5.3 Caravan Stage Society. And just council, if you have a conflict, just let me know while our speaker gets queued up. We have our contact as Mr. Paul Kirby. So Mr. Kirby, please.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. My name is Paul Kirby, and I'm with Adriana, and we are the directors of the Caravan Stage Company. Some of you may be familiar with us from our performances in Souq in 2018. And briefly, we tour and perform on our own 90-foot tall ship. And we have been doing this for about 51 years. And we actually started in Souq in 1970. And we had planned to come to Souq and perform and open the new show there. And actually and this morning we sent a revised, updated proposal. But at this juncture, I think we are very much caught up in the third wave of COVID. And we now, after making a series of phone calls, am I still on?
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
Today, and just talking to a number of other people, it seems like it's going to be extremely difficult to do our performances or any public performances in the span of the summer and September, actually the early fall. So we find ourselves in a position where we think the best thing right now is to withdraw our request for funding this year, and keep our fingers crossed and hopefully be coming to Souq next year to once again open the show, not only to perform the show, but to actually premiere the show in Souq in June of next season.
Thank you, Paul and Adriana. Just to the new, sorry, Miss Arthur, I believe. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. Do you mind just turning your video off, and we'll have you back when it's your turn to present. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. It's really unfortunate news, just given the circumstances that are really beyond our control. Though I would ask, so I appreciate that there may not be questions because you've shared that you're reluctantly but understandably needing to withdraw your application. So I'm hoping though, and my ask is that you keep in touch with us. And so when we know how things are going to evolve, there has already been a motion endorsed that are from Councillor Bateman about how can we look to reopen our community and have activities and the like that that we could pull out. So we're just sort of starting that conversation, and of course it's difficult to plan ahead right now with the way things are. So just ask that you please keep in touch with us on sort of the status of everything, and that we can potentially find a way to hopefully celebrate with you next year.
For sure, we really well, you know, Souq means a lot to us, and we'd love to come, and we might even, if some restrictions are lifted, we might just come to Souq to have the ship there, and we actually are considering doing a sort of a major pivot and doing a kind of a online preview of some of the elements of the show. So maybe we'll, if things go well, we'll see if we can come to Souq and set up at the Harbour Authority dock, and we would film it and online screen it from Souq.
Be like a nice teaser for when things open. Certainly, I think having the benefit of being able to view your performance when you were last here. The virtual would not be the same as actually taking it in person and sitting in Souq on the water and taking it in. It's something that just can't be replicated from home. So please keep us apprised of your plans for sure.
Okay, and thank you very much for the consideration and the opportunity. And we look forward to, well, meeting you all at our show and in 2022.
Thank you very much, Pauline, very much. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item 5.4, which is the Edward Milne Community School Society. So, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'll recuse myself at this point.
How will we contact you? Do we just phone you or email?
Sarah my phone number.
Perfect. Thank you for being proactive. Okay. Okay, Councillor Bateman is declared a conflict and is leaving the meeting. So then I'd like to invite the representative. I have Ashley Green on behalf of the Edward Milne Community School. Welcome. We'll start the timer when you start your presentation.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. I am the Acting Community School Program Coordinator for the EMCS Society. I started at the same time that the pandemic shut everything down. So it's been a very interesting step into a role, to say the least. EMCS Society, really quick rundown, has been in Souq since 1987 and provides an array of community programming ranging from literacy and gardening to community education and summer camps. Our Summer Youth Engagement Coordinator is hired to enhance and deliver our summer youth programming. They create meaningful and fun opportunities to engage with the youth in Souq. Finding opportunities to safely engage youth has been challenging, but we had a very innovative and energetic EMCS grad step into the role last summer with no funding prepared for him, and he coined the brand Youth for Souq to capture our summer youth engagement programs. And previously, the social media sites seemed to get, there was a few of them in each year, and then so they kind of lacked continuity and content. So since then, we've tried to promote that page, and hopefully that can act as a resource for more than just our organization in the future. Each summer, we hire a youth engagement coordinator to host 4 youth by youth programs to inspire and engage. There's a lot of chatter about how there isn't much for youth to do locally and that they don't have a space to call their own. And while we can't solve the latter, we can certainly address the former. And so I've sent an invitation to many local youth service providers virtually to meet and discuss how we can better communicate and synergize and plan events and opportunities. So there is in fact a lot going on, but it's all kind of in silos and there doesn't seem to be like one central resource for youth or parents to reference. So that's kind of my own personal project on the side. But as an employer and a mentor, I will definitely encourage the summer youth coordinator to provide a fresh youth perspective and help me foster partnerships and get their voice heard. So last year we engaged over 200 youth here in Sooke and some in the West Shore with a BMX biking clinic, a tennis clinic, an online photo contest, and local beach cleanup. All of the participants, parents, and instructors were really excited about these, and we're excited to see these events happen again. I'm also hoping that we can put together an outdoor movie night, and that would currently, with current COVID protocols, that can still happen as long as it's a drive-in situation. And I'm working with this group of other youth service providers to see if this is an event that we could work together and have partnerships and make it happen for both youth and young families. This application is specifically to help fund summer 2021 local events. Our youth engagement coordinator will start part-time in June and move to full-time for the months of July and August. They have a very limited time frame to decide what projects and programs they're going to tackle. So I'm trying to help them line up some event funding and project funding so that they can focus on the event delivery and focus and not purely just the fundraising aspect. The summer programming will include hosting a couple of the successful programs from last summer and the addition of a couple new ones that the coordinator themselves get to plan and develop. And of course, those are always flexible and changing with the current COVID situation. Our grant is requesting $3,500 from the District of Sooke to help fund our summer youth activities. The bulk of our costs overall in our budget are for wages for the coordinator role, and that's going to be funded almost entirely through the Canada Summer Jobs HRSDC program. The EMCS Society is committing $1,500. We have an application pending with Walmart currently for another $1,000. And then not included in our budget is community donations, though they seem to average around $500 annually towards youth engagement activities. In sum, youth engagement is increasingly important in our growing and ever diversifying community. Our spring break program recently hosted had Sioux youth from EMCS, Royal Bay, Belmont, and included quite a few international students living locally. So while we aren't in a position to create a dedicated youth facility right now and have indoor events at the school right now, we can certainly help fill some gaps in youth programming, which I think is an especially important thing for us to do right now during the COVID-19 pandemic. And I really want to help give the youth in town a voice and safe recreational opportunities and the ability to take some responsibility and lead us in the directions we need to go. So thank you so much for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. So look for questions from members of council. Anyone have any questions for a second time? Okay, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, look, thank you very much for your presentation. I just have a few questions here. I certainly do notice that of your 11,600 budget, most of it is wages, but the BMX biking clinic and the youth tennis clinic, what's the cost associated with there? You got a 5 and a 250. Is that rentals or what are those amounts for?
No, we had for the BMX clinic, so we had advertising costs, we had lunch provided both days, we had snacks provided. That was a multi-day clinic. Both of these were multi-day clinics, so they had lunch and snacks provided, and then we also had 3 instructors actually who were like certified BMX instructors. And that was actually hosted in West Shore.
Are the instructors
And so,
paid?
yeah, that was what our funding went to with those. And then the tennis clinic, it was the same.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? Okay, thank you very much for all the work that you're doing and for joining with us tonight with your presentation, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up is actually we need to contact Councillor Bateman. And while he's returning to the meeting, perhaps I can queue up Fed Urban Agricultural Society, please. And I have Brianna Stewart as the contact for the Fed Urban Agricultural Society.
Hello.
Welcome, and if you could just wait, we'll just have you start when Councillor Bateman, and he's coming through now. There's Councillor Bateman. Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. It's lovely to be here. My name is Brianna Stewart. I am the program coordinator for the Food Eco District, or FED. We are a local Victoria nonprofit, so we're really focused on urban agriculture and sustainable food systems. We have a number of projects on the go, but I'm here today to talk to you about something called My Fed Farm. So in 2020, about this time last year, we launched My Fed Farm in response to the COVID pandemic. What can we do to help, and how can we increase food security in our region? So what we ended up doing was delivering startup food growing kits to over 500 individual homes in our Greater Victoria region. Those startup kits included 2 to 5 planters, soil, seeds, plant starts, educational materials and resources, as well as support for new growers. We were lucky enough to partner with 3 Souq organizations last year, which allowed us to extend our reach. Transition Souq, Souq Garden Club, and Souq Region Food Chi. So all in all, last year we delivered roughly 40 gardens to Souq residents specifically. Yeah, so we're doing this program again this year because, as we all have been talking about, we are still very much in a pandemic. There are still people who continue to be disproportionately affected by the pandemic. This year, with the benefit of time, we are really focusing on partnerships, as well as targeting people who really could use these gardens. So low-income families, single-parent homes, people that are immunocompromised, as well as First Nations communities. That's been a big push for us as well this year. So we're going to do another 500 gardens starting in May and be delivering those again. We are once again partnering with the same 3 Souq organizations. They've reached out to us. We're going to work together again. They're amazing. They kind of act as a satellite for us. So we really coordinate with them, which is great. It's a big project, so we do have a decent amount of secured funding at this point, but we're looking this year to the individual municipalities to support us as well, which we weren't able to do last year. The funds go towards the hard cost of the material. So each of these garden kits is roughly $120 in hard costs: the planters, the soil, the seeds, the starts, etc. So we're asking for funds to cover the cost of that. And I think that's about all I have to say about our program. I'm really excited to get it going and to be able to talk to you guys about it today.
That's great. Thank you very much for your presentation. So I'll ask Council, any questions on this particular application, please? Call for questions for a second time. Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I've been trying to find a budget for this one, and all I've got is last year's income statement. Am I missing something, or?
I noticed that as well in your agenda, and I went back through and looked at the email that I sent, the application that I sent, and I did include a budget. So it was in there. I'm not sure why it's not in the agenda.
So I guess then if you could just, you said about $120 per basket, cost of
per kit, like per home, essentially.
Okay, and how many kits were you planning for Souq?
We imagine that given the demand from last year, we'll be on par of the same thing. So we were thinking 50 to 60. That's upping it a little bit. I think we did about 45 out there last year.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your application and your time here today. And as I mentioned before, we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so item 5.7 is the Intermunicipal Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, and you'll also see in the supplementary package that there is no presentation here. It's pretty straightforward ask in terms of what the request for the $200 is.
Sorry, point of order, just missing item 5.6, the Harmony Project.
Oh goodness, hold on.
It'll be a night.
Okay, well, I think we're good to move on anyway because we don't have the applicant or the presentation. So I'm skipping ahead here. Okay, pardon me. So sorry about that, Harmony Project. 5.6, Harmony Project Sooke. So I'd like to invite our applicant forward. I have Ms. Lorna Bjorklund as the contact, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
But
and if you would like, we can't see you. If you want to turn on your camera, that's great. And if not, we can hear you, so we can do either.
Okay, well, I'm trying to turn my camera on and don't seem to be able to get it. And I think I have two other, so I'm the executive director for the Harmony Project, and there should be two other board members here. So Richard Sharman, our treasurer, and Sheila Wincup, who's going to presenting a PowerPoint presentation on the Harmony Project. So anyway, I guess I don't think there's any way of getting that video on. So maybe I'll just forget it because we're short of time. So the Harmony Project, you know well, and we are very thankful that we have the District of Sioux supporting us in the past and the present. You've helped us purchase instruments. We're involved in music education, looking mainly to strings and drumline, and we have been going for approximately 6 to 8 years. We have played at the New Year's Levee. We've done a drive-in movie night, thanks to the district. And so we're very appreciative of all the things that have been done. During COVID, we've kept things going online, plus in person, so a hybrid approach. And we're interested in keeping the mental health of our students and our community on the positive side. And so we've presented goals for kids and for our older students as well. So for example, now we're going to play in the Nationals for Music Fest Canada, all of these groups, and that'll be in May. We've got end of year concerts, and we've had a Christmas concert, and we also participated in the Greater Victoria Performing Arts Festival. So we've had a number of activities that we've been doing. We're hoping to start a new class in the fall, and so that would be a new class of strings, starting at grade 4 and up, and then drumline, a junior drumline. So that would start probably about grade 5 and up. So I think that Sarah might be going to show us a power presentation, so possibly I should turn it over to her now. Or Sheila, if Sheila's around.
I think Sarah's going to do it.
Okay. Oh, you're there, Sheila. Great. Okay. So Sheila's responsible for this.
Your Worship, that's 4 minutes and 30 seconds if the applicant has anything to add.
Okay, to the applicant, did you want to add or do you just want to run 30 seconds left of the video?
Sure, just run the 30 seconds left, yeah.
Thank you. It's unfortunate just for the time there. I'm sorry, I was quite moved by the video. It actually made me cry a little bit. I suppose it's what we're all missing right now, but I found it quite impactful, so just bear with me. So questions from members of council, please. Councillor Bateman.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I have lots of questions, but I've been asked not to ask too many indirect questions. So the direct question is, if indeed we cannot give you the full $7,000 you're seeking, you have a shopping list here of 6 items. Are those prioritized in any way?
Yes, I would imagine so. Sheila, would you like to speak to that too? Anyway, yes, I would say so.
So that would be good for us to know.
I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me.
Okay.
So
Well, excuse me, I'm Richard, the treasurer.
Okay,
the string instruments are by far the top priority, I would say, apart from replacing drumsticks. They tend to wear out a bit. And then the sound equipment was, the intention of that was the recording performances for the festivals that Lorna had mentioned. On page 3 of the application is what we're requesting. The uniforms would be at the bottom of the list. That would be nice to have, but it's the instruments that are by far the important thing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Thank you. Councillor St. Pierre.
Just a quick question as to whether or not, I don't see any indications in your budget of any COVID-related expenses for carrying on your programming. Were there any, and are there any that I'm missing?
No, we actually we spent less because of the COVID, because the expenses that we would normally incur for facilities, for rental of facilities, were cut down a lot. And so on the end, we actually had a surplus last year that will help develop the new program this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from members of council? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. And if you do have a way of sharing that video with us, I would like to see the whole thing at another time. Thank you.
We can email you.
Okay, that would be lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So item 5.7 has been made clear. So that brings me to 5.8 is the Kids Quest childcare. And so I would like to, we have Steps to the Future Childcare Society, and I have Mandy Clare or Shannon Otterson as the contacts, please. Welcome,
Hi.
thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm actually Mandy Clare. Shannon has moved on, which is part of the reason we've applied for a grant, because we're a nonprofit childcare society. And we've actually lost quite a bit of funding and spaces for children. So we don't have a lot of in our budget to withhold our society. Like we don't have enough funding for staff. Our childcare spaces aren't very full. We're trying to upkeep our building, get kids more toys, get more staff in there. We're losing staff because I don't have enough children to maintain my staff. And we're just going through a lot of hardship since the pandemic started. And when Shannon filled out this form, she left a lot of blanks because she filled it out during spring break. We don't have enough to, right now we're trying to maintain our vans to keep them up, and we'd like to buy a newer van. We'd like to hold our staff that have qualifications, because I've actually resigned myself and I'm heading out the door, because at this point there's not enough to withhold my job. Personally, I mean, we want to maintain our society, and one of our houses is close to shutting down because we have lost a lot of children. So we're just trying to upkeep right now. Sorry, this is my first time, so I'm a little bit nervous.
Well, that's okay, Ms. Claire. Thank you. Perhaps I'll turn it over to Counsel for questions. Thank you for being with us today. Over to Counsel, please. Okay, Councillor Bateman, I see your hand, and then Councillor Logans.
Yeah, I know Steps to the Future came to us in 2019.
Right.
And I think you were excluded for some reason. I'm just looking at the minutes now. I think it might have been related to a business license.
Well, they're still in the process of maintaining. One of the houses doesn't have their business license. And actually, that's the house that's actually full. That one actually can maintain its staff and the child care ratio. It's actually the front house that does have the license that is losing children. And that's where I'm employed right now. And we're just trying to get ahead. Like, I have parent volunteers in there all the time. We're trying to upkeep our society. And we're just in the process of trying to get ahead. So we're actually in the process of dealing with the District of Sooke, trying to get that back house licensed as well.
Right. And in terms of your application, you're seeking, I think on the front page it stated 10,000, but of course the maximum is 7,000. No,
actually, it says 7,000 at the bottom, the total.
Oh, okay, on your budget, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, unfortunately, the staffing cost here, 4,400, we could not cover. The other items, however, would be eligible. Thank you.
So the staffing we can maintain. It's just right now with one of the houses not full, we just can't maintain those staff. So.
Yeah.
And
the pandemic criteria.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Very best wishes, by the way.
Thank you. Over to Councillor Logans, please.
Thank you, Mandy, for your presentation. I have been in your shoes in terms of presenting to council in the past, so I know how nerve-wracking that can be. I appreciate it. Yeah, as Councillor Bateman mentioned, there are ineligible costs. I guess it's hard for you to answer since you didn't write this and someone else did, but what are you looking for then for the 7? I guess it could, like, we can't give you 7,000 based on.
And the board prefers that ideally we'd like to get our license in place, and that's our job. But we want to maintain one of those bigger vans that can transport the children all at once instead of using 2 vans, because gas is bi-weekly. It just doesn't budget. It's not budget friendly for us. We want to advertise to get that front house filled up. So to go to advertising, to get more equipment for outside, because they have a beautiful yard out there that can use equipment the kids can play on, like a climber or slides or donuts. Or
sounds like in general, because we can't cover travel fees either or costs, but it sounds like in general you're looking just for cash to put towards anything to sustain your business.
Yes, we need to build our business, like even the toys within the house for the children to acquire to play with.
So how does the organization intend on moving forward, either A, without these funds if they were not to be granted, and B, next year, for instance? Because this
Well,
is meant to be a sustainable fund.
Well, right now we're being covered by our childcare fees from the children we have. And we're doing fundraising on the side. We do bottle drives. We do lots of other fundraisers on the side to lift our costs, but we're also we're ongoing trying to advertise on the social medias, advertisements to fill in the front space. So we're not giving up. We're still trying to get our children, to fill up our houses, our front house, because our older group is the house that we need to fill up. Our younger group is actually quite full right now. So we're doing a little bit better than when the pandemic first started. It's just hit, like I said, our older children group. All these parents are working from home.
Okay. And I did just notice, like, we don't really have a financial statement for you.
Okay.
We have banking information. So in future applications, if you can provide us with some form of financial statement, that would be helpful.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question for myself. Is it the after school care that you've noticed a decline, that you have the decline, or is it like the younger children?
No, Kids Quest 2 is the younger group, and they're full and they have a wait list.
Okay.
And the summer program it's voluntary, but mostly the younger kids actually fill up faster. Our older group is the one that's dropped dramatically.
Okay.
About 3/4, we're 12 out of 30 spots are full.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from members of council? Okay, thank you very much, Mandy, for joining with us today. You're done. So you can either stay and observe the rest of the meeting, or you're welcome to depart. We'll be in touch either way.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item 5.9, and this is the Navy League of Canada Sooke branch, and I have Lisa Simmons as our contact for the Navy League.
I don't think Lisa is coming on. My name is Candy Arthur, and I think I've been tagged in to be here.
Okay, welcome, Miss Arthur. I'll turn it over to you. You have 5 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Lieutenant Candy Arthur. I am currently the commanding officer of the Sea Cadet Corps, which is out in Souq. We have put together an application grant to help fund our biathlon program. So a little bit about the, sorry, I have animals in the background that are loud, so I apologize for that in advance. The Sea Cadet program it's a youth program that is aimed towards children the age of 12 to 18. And the main focus of it is to help youth develop attributes of leadership, citizenship, physical fitness, and an interest in activities that the Canadian Forces participate in. It is not a feeding program for the Canadian Forces, though. There's lots of different things and activities that the youth get to do. Some of it is supported by the Department of National Defense, and other parts of our programs we have to fund ourselves, either by parent donations, local donations, fundraisers such as beer and steak nights, silent auctions, bottle drives are a big one, and like I said, just community involvement. Throughout COVID, we have been hit relatively hard as it is a national program, so a lot of the direction has to be given at a national level, and obviously in other provinces, COVID is a lot more intense than it is here in BC, and our cadets, since I want to say late March of last year, haven't actually been able to participate in-person training. We've had to move to an online platform. For training, that's been all right. We've made some adjustments there. However, as far as fundraising goes, it's made it rather difficult as the cadets are not allowed to participate in any community events, and fundraising being one of them. So it's definitely hurt our programs in a sense of that. Biathlon specifically is something that I'm very passionate about myself. I was a cadet, and then I became an officer once I aged out, so once I turned 19, and I've been a part of the program since then, a better half of probably 20 years. Biathlon is a sport. It's an Olympic sport. For those who are unaware of it, it is cross-country skiing with a shooting component. Generally, you ski anywhere from 8 to 12 kilometers. The loop sizes can be different. Sometimes they're, 3 kilometers, sometimes they're up to 6 kilometers, flat, downhill, uphill terrain. And in between your 3 laps, you do 3 rounds of shooting. So you would ski a lap, you come into the range, your heart rate is elevated, you're going to shoot 5 rounds. For every target you miss, a minute gets added to your time. So you really have to kind of decide, are you going to focus on having great groupings and shooting sighting wise while your heart rate is elevated, or are you just going to bang off your 5 rounds and focus on skiing really hard, or kind of a combination in between? The way that it works in the cadet program is we have a zone competition. So that would be local units on Vancouver Island, and it includes the Sea Cadets, Army Cadets, and Air Cadets. The top teams from the island would go and compete with other top teams from around BC. I believe there are 7 different zones altogether, and out of those 7 zones, it would be called the provincials, the top cadets from that would go and compete in the nationals, and that would be with the best teams from Alberta, Nova Scotia, across the provinces, and they would all compete against each other at a national level. It's also a sport that is, as I mentioned earlier, an Olympic sport. A lot of our youth do biathlon in the cadet program, and they also are on a civilian team. Here on the island, we are very fortunate. Mount Washington has a beautiful facility for biathlon and training. It's local, and it's very well set up for both the cross-country skiing, and it has the range. And we also have a camp up in Comox at 19 Wing that we're available to use for accommodations. So our funding program request is...
That's 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you at your 5 minutes, but thank you for all the information that you provided. So turn it to Counsel for questions, please. Councillor Logans, please.
Thank you, Lieutenant Arthur, for your presentation. I did have a question about who can participate in this event. I understand that it's limited to only 15 participants. Oh, sorry, you're still on mute. You might have to unmute yourself first.
It's not unlimited to 15 participants. The reason in our programming or in our budget request, we have 15 kids is our unit is currently sitting at about 30 kids. And to start our program, we would offer it to 15 kids just to kind of keep costs reasonable and make sure that there's enough interest before we invested in buying a bunch of rifles and equipment to go with it.
Okay. And are these youth who are unable to pay for this type of program? I know there is some fundraising being done, which is great, but are they youth at risk with financial limitations?
I'm not entirely sure about their personal finances. The cadet program itself is a free program offered to the youth. We're actually not allowed to ask for money from their parents. If they're willing to donate, that is great. We're restricted with how much funding we get. This is something that we're looking for extra funding and trying to get it on our own and get it from other sources to offer to the youth, to introduce them to the sport, to help with physical fitness, wellness, and just overall a different outlet for youth to have, opposed to video games at home, and especially within the COVID circumstances, being outside and on the mountain is one of the safer and actually allowed activities to still do, so we can still have our youth being engaged instead of locked up, and it helps with the whole mental health and kind of trickles down.
Definitely. I am a bit concerned it's only limited to 15. Hopefully, eventually, of course, post-COVID, you can expand that to include everyone. I understand that. But you did say that you were restricted with how much funding you get. Is that funding you get from the federal government?
So we do get a little bit of funding from the federal government, but it is very strict on how we're allowed to use it. For example, I believe it is about $1,800 I get, and it's called my LSA fund, and that money is allocated for training aids such as whiteboards, paper, construction paper, things that my instructors need to teach or would help them teach. It's not really there for going up to a mountain a couple of times, paying for skiing lessons so the kids can learn how to actually cross-country ski, paying for trail passes or food for them so they can eat, so it's not a cost that their parents have to cover. Again, we could ask the parents to cover it, but sometimes not all families have those means, and especially everyone has been hit with the COVID pandemic, so it would be even harder. And further to your point about the 15 members, part of that is I'm the only adult staff that is running this program completely. And so some of that is just, I have to make sure that I have the adult supervision in place to make sure that everyone is safe and there's no liability issues.
Right, yeah. Typically it would be nice to fund 15 youth who 100% cannot afford this. And that it's guaranteed, right? So that's sort of why I'm asking those questions. But the last question I have is, will this event happen without our funding?
It is like no and yes is the short answer. I've been working towards getting this going for the last 3 years, and it's been very hard. I probably have enough funding for our through our fundraising that we have done to take maybe 3 to 5 kids up to the mountain twice. I could take a larger group, maybe 8 kids if there was interest, but only go up once. So the funding really would assist us in getting more kids up to the mountain more frequently, or just a larger group up once. A lot also depends on the interest of the cadets, if they're even interested in going. Yes, we've asked and kind of budgeted around 15 cadets, but I don't know, I might only have 10 that are actually interested in doing this particular sport.
Okay, and in terms of the cost for the rifles, that's not something that you can obtain from the government?
Unfortunately, it's not. They do allocate rifles for us to use, but it would only be at a competition. We wouldn't necessarily be able to use them throughout the year to continually train at a range so that the cadets can, you know, grow and develop those skills.
Can you rent them at the range?
We are not able to, unfortunately.
Great, thanks for answering my questions.
Thank you. Over to Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I got just the first comment about the rifle. They're a very specialized rifle, and I'm not surprised they cost $5,000. I expect you only want to buy one.
No.
I heard. Sorry,
that is, I believe, the cost for a number of rifles, not just one rifle.
Oh, okay, that's not.
I
quite
think
fair.
that's probably for, I want to say 15, but I might be lying to you, so don't quote me on that.
Well, I'd be interested to see what sort of rifle that is. But anyways, from what you're telling me, that you do have enough money in the bank to sort of start the program. So if you got less than your ask, it looked like something that you would still carry on with the program. Is that correct?
Are you referring to the budget sheet that was also included in it?
Well, you're asking for $77,000. If we gave you $2,000, you know, that sort of thing. I can't say.
Oh,
that.
absolutely. I mean, at this point, any sort of funding we would receive for this would help us make this a reality. And obviously, the more we can open up to other children and cadets. But we would do the absolute most and stretch it as far as we can with whatever funding we can get. And we are actively fundraising as much as we possibly can within the restrictions that the federal government has put on us, and then also just considering the COVID pandemic.
Can you ask a service club to help?
As in like the Souq Lions Club, for example?
Well, I wouldn't want to mention that myself, but let's say, could you ask a service club? There's a few of them around.
I believe that we can. I am not entirely sure of our branch, who they've approached and not approached regarding that. Somewhat off topic, but not. We do have a sailing program, and I know that our branch has reached out to some of those service clubs. Souq Lions, I believe, is one of them, for example, and worked with other members in the community to secure funding that helps keep funding in our bank for these types of programs that we're not getting as much funding for or haven't found other partners for.
Yeah, just keep that in mind, because sort of up the alley of some service clubs that I know. Okay, thank you.
Okay. See nothing from other counselors. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today and for your work on this project in Sooke.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is 5.10, the need to suicide prevention, education, and support. The contact I have here is Maria Weaver, the operations manager.
Yep, I'm here. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen with you folks here because I've got a PowerPoint prepared.
Thank you.
Is everybody able to see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me this evening. As mentioned, I'm Maria and I work with Need to Suicide Prevention. I actually, in the time since submitting this application and this evening, I'm now in an acting executive director position with the agency. So for those of you that are not familiar with Need to, we're a nonprofit organization with a specific focus on suicide prevention in Greater Victoria. And we have been serving residents of the Greater Victoria region since 1971, previously under the name Need, operating a phone crisis line. Since 2010, we pivoted our focus and rebranded to Need to, and have been primarily serving local youth, which we define as being anyone under the age of 30. The program that's the subject of the grant ask that we've submitted to the District of Sooke is the Youth Suicide Prevention Program, which is made up of 3 component parts. The first of which is Youth Space, our digital crisis service, which is accessible to youth in Greater Victoria through instant messaging and text messaging. And when sending a message to Youth Space, youth are connected to a crisis responder, and they're able to receive emotional support and crisis intervention when appropriate. We also offer educational programs to the community, the first of which is the Suicide Education and Awareness Workshops, or otherwise known as SEA. And we offer the SEA presentations in middle and high schools in School District 61, 62, 63, and 64. The intention of these workshops is to help youth in our communities recognize, respond to, and cope with suicidal ideation, whether that be in themselves or in a loved one or peer. And more recently, we've also started offering a Mindfulness for Middle Schools workshop series, which is a 6-session workshop series that we offer to younger grades that came at the request of teachers wanting our presentations for younger students. And it's intended to be an introduction to mindfulness as a healthy coping tool, so some more prevention education. The way our youth suicide prevention program benefits Sooke residents is that there will be access for youth residing in the District of Sooke to our school-based suicide prevention and mental wellness education programs. And also through these programs and through our advertising, we also connect these youth to emotional support available through youthspace.ca, which is accessible any night of the year. In addition to the programs that we offer through the Youth Suicide Prevention Program, we do also offer community training opportunities, which includes Safe Talk and Assist, which are suicide first aid training. And our Youth Suicide Prevention Program, specifically through Youth Space and SEA, also offer a number of volunteer opportunities. And all of our volunteers do come from the Greater Victoria region, so that's another opportunity available as well. As I'm sure comes to you folks as not much of a surprise, there has been a great impact of COVID-19 on our organization, both from a pivoting to virtual service delivery perspective, but also in the need that we're seeing out in the community and how this is impacting the youth that we serve. We have seen an increase in the demand for our services. Most notably, our youth space chat numbers have gone up by 20% as compared to equivalent times in previous years. And we are also seeing more requests from community groups outside of the school system for our workshops. So youth groups, concerned parents, and other service providers that are working with youth. We're also seeing about 1 in 5 of our youth space chats are actually mentioning COVID-19 directly. So having some kind of mention, whether that be that COVID is specifically what that youth is talking about and distressed by, or more commonly what we're seeing is the way in which COVID is a contributing factor for youth in our community, youth reporting often feelings of isolation and loneliness. So as you can see, mental health services in Greater Victoria have always been important, but now more than ever, there's a distinct need out in the community. So I just wanted to thank you folks again for having me to speak this evening. We've been very thankful to receive the support of the District of Sooke in the past, and thank you for your consideration again this evening. I'll turn it back to you folks for questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation and for joining us tonight. I'll ask members of council. I see Councillor Bateman. Go ahead, please. Then Councillor Logans.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for your presentation and this important work you're doing. I'm curious, you reach out to all of the CRD municipalities, is that correct?
We do, correct.
Yeah, and so the ask you're making of us, is that determined on a population basis?
It has been historically, yes. So we typically look at the number of schools that we're able to reach a number of students, and we've designated our ask based on how many students we're reaching in different municipalities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Over to Councillor Logans, please.
Thank you for your presentation. I know that this ask of $1,700 doesn't even cover $1,000 for each youth that we've lost to a suicide in the past year in our community. So it's definitely something that I would love to fund. So I'm glad that you brought this forward. If we were to provide additional funding, is there a need for that? Are you able to use additional funding? Sorry, I am on a desk that goes up and down and I keep hitting the up button. No worries. But, yeah, I think you got the gist of my question.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the factors that we're facing in response to COVID is we've pivoted to having virtual operations, not just in terms of service delivery, but previously our youth space staff and volunteers were all working out of a centralized location. And obviously, unfortunately, that's not possible at this time. What that's really left us with is a challenge in being able to meet the service demands that we're seeing right now, and also being able to provide support to the volunteers that are working remotely. And as such, we've had an increase in the number of staffing hours we've had to dedicate to youth space. And I understand that the staffing wages specifically are an ineligible expense. However, should we receive additional funding, we would be able to allocate some other funding more towards those increased staffing costs, and then utilize additional funding to cover any kind of program materials, volunteer appreciation supplies, etc.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Logans. See nothing further from council. Thank you very much for the work that you're doing and for joining with us tonight.
Thank you for having me this evening.
Okay, council, I see it's 8:30. I just want to check if you wanted to take a short break. Like a 5-minute break, stretch break. I just think we're going to be in this for the long haul, so I just kind of recommend that. So it's 8:31.
I would like to take a break for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we'll be back here at 8:36, please. Thank you. Okay, as council members return, I'll ask that the members for the Royal Canadian Legion, we have Merle Fulton as the contact. If you could start, if you could join us in the call, you just need to turn your video on and join us, please. Thank you.
Oh dear.
Okay, it's 8:36, so we'll continue on. Welcome, Ms. Fulton. I'll turn it over to you, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Tait and Council, for the opportunity for the presentation. I am the Secretary for the Legion. We are requesting funding for automatic door openers for our front doors at the Legion. That's those push plates with the doors so that people with mobility issues can get in and out of the building. It's for our front doors only. The other door that we have on the front of the building has steps. The front doors are on ground level, so it's easy for people to get in and out. This is to help us make us more handicap accessible. We are open on a very limited basis, obviously with COVID currently, but with our back patio open now, we are able to get people in and out. Hopefully though, with the automatic door openers, it would make it easier for some of our older members, if they wish to come in, make it easier for them to get in and out of the building. And like I said, you know, this just makes us more compliant for accessibility, which we would like to be. We are open to the general public, so anyone is more than welcome to come to the Legion and enjoy our menu off the kitchen. Other than that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fulton. I'll ask Council for questions. It's pretty straightforward. Councillor Lajeunesse, please.
Yeah, I understand that the Legion also is looking at replacing the wheelchair lift with an elevator. Do you have a quote for that?
We have, our chairlift was replaced last year. We do have a new one. We ended up getting a grant through BCU Con Command for that. An elevator we're exploring, but we have put no budget together and no numbers at this time. It would be an external elevator though on the building. There's no way we could build it inside.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good.
Thank you. Questions on the application? Councillor St. Pierre?
I'm curious as to whether or not you've got other sources of funding potentially available, since this seems to have the district responsible for making sure your doors are kept open. So just curious about that piece.
At this point, we have very limited funds coming in because of COVID. We don't have any rentals. We can't have events. All our money coming in currently to pay bills and our staff is through our kitchen, which is now open Wednesday through Saturdays. We don't have a lot of extra funding. We do have a little bit, but it's an emergency fund only. This definitely is a need, but if we don't get the funding, we would have to, you know, put it aside temporarily until things change and we are able to put funding together for that.
I'd like to follow up on that just a little bit. You mentioned COVID. I'm wondering how exactly has COVID impacted your ability to fundraise and the need for the doors, if you don't mind answering.
At this point, as I said, we are unable to hold any events, which would bring in extra money. We are not allowed. We have no other groups renting. The upper portions of our two-story hall, our renters currently are not using it because of COVID restrictions. We were able to have at least a few one-of meetings from various stratas, but you know, at this point, as I said, pretty much any money coming into the building at this point is coming through sales through our kitchen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from members of council? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Fulton, for joining with us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up is item 5.12, the Souq Bike Club, please.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm here.
Welcome.
Hi again, guys. I'm Heather. I've been the president of the Souq Bike Club for the last 3 years. For anybody that doesn't know about our organization, we are committed to increasing cycling opportunities for all ages, abilities, and skills levels in the Sooke Hills region, predominantly in mountain biking, but we do youth and child initiatives. We are asking for funding today for training our community members and local board members for trail maintenance courses. So we're just getting to the finalization stages with a few landowners to allow us to maintain trails in our local area. And in order to do so safely, we need some training on how to best ecologically preserve these areas, but also how to build certain mountain bike features to a safe standard. These courses are expensive and we can fund part of it. We're going to go down the same deliverer. He's Mark Wood from Trail Holistics, is a local island fellow that's done a lot of the other trail development courses. So we'd like to keep it all continuous. So most of the trails are maintained to the same standard and offer them in a few part education series. As the funding comes in, we can offer them, you know, twice a year kind of thing. And if we had any leftover funding, I would love to be able to start offering some more local coaching, learn to bike programs in our community. We have 3 certified PMBI instructors on our board now that are willing to coach for a very minimal cost. So mountain biking has, you know, blown up since COVID has started, and we'd love to get some safety and some more education around these people that are all out getting new bicycles and make sure that they're learning how to ride in a safe manner. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for being succinct. So questions from council, please. Questions, second time, Councillor Bateman, then St. Pierre.
Yeah, thanks for this presentation. I'm curious, you have an 8,400 total expenses, you have 2,600 revenue, and you're asking for 7,000 from us. So that doesn't quite grok to me. That there's $1,200 extra.
Yeah, so the extra part I would love is to be able to start offering some coaching clinics and some learn to bike programs in the community. So if community members are interested in the trail maintenance side and trail opportunities, they can do that with our organization. Or if they're just learning to get their whole family on bikes and how to ride safely, we can offer some of that as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre next, and then Councillor Logans.
Thank you for your presentation. I think that it's great value added for the community, and I'm curious as to whether or not your budget includes anything for actually providing signage, maps, and promoting the trail system within the community.
That does not, because that's going to fall under the jurisdiction and the funding of the landowners that we're working with. So that's part of the agreement, is that they're going to cover all of the funding costs associated with that. So we'll be involved in the development and the planning of how they're going up, but we don't have to cover any of the costs, which is wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Logans.
Hi, thank you, Ms. Rose, for your presentation and for everything you do with the Souq Bike Club. I'm hoping you can demonstrate a bit of financial need by, instead of saying what you wish you have, what you need to have from us. One question in regards to that would be, with the Trail Holistics level 1 and 2, does part of that include instructor fees, which we wouldn't be able to fund, and travel fees?
Yeah, I think there was a component on there that I did put for travel and accommodation, which was an extra $700. I thought that was a line on our application there. It was a separate kilometers per diem and travel expenses was $700. So I understand you guys can't cover that, but we would be able to cover that as a society.
The Trail Holistics level 1 and level 2, that what is included in those amounts? Are there
just the cost of the instructor to come and facilitate the course? It's these kind of courses just come with a high price tag. Yeah.
I understand. Unfortunately, we can't fund instructors or travel, so that kind of dwindles things down a bit for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Councillor St. Pierre?
This might actually be a question for staff, following up on Councillor Logan's question. I'm curious as to whether or not a training cost is actually the same as wages. So if you're paying for a course, is that actually a wage? If Ms. Gray could perhaps comment on that.
Question, clarity from staff, please.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's, I mean, technically salary would be like a salaried employee for the organization. This is hiring somebody to host the event. So it's up for interpretation. My personal feeling is that wouldn't be considered salaries necessarily. It's paying the cost for somebody to provide the event. It's not for paying for the salaries for the employees of this organization. So, I mean, that would be up for council consideration if they would consider that or a portion of that an eligible expense.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for all that you're doing and for joining with us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter tonight is the Souq Family Resource Society, Caring for Community. Welcome.
Hi everyone. My name's Louise Parkinson. I'm the manager of the counselling and youth programs at Souq Family Resource Society. Thank you so much for hearing our application. I'm just going to share my screen because I've just got a few things that I would like to show you.
Sorry, point of order. I have to step out for this as my mother is the executive director of the Souq Family Resource Society. So I'll be out for the next 3 presentations by the organization. And if you could just shoot me an email when you need me to return. Thank you.
So an email. Okay, thank you, Councillor Logans. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So our Caring for Community Counselling program is a low-cost sliding scale counselling for residents of Sooke and surrounding areas. Now, we have seen approximately a 30% increase in demand for our services since the pandemic started. We now have a substantial wait list, and we are the only low-cost counselling service in our region. So some of the things that we have seen happen since the start of COVID, stress levels have more than doubled. 81% of Canadians are now reporting worsening mental health. More than half of Canadians are feeling worried or anxious most of the time. There's been approximately a 40% increase in separation and divorce. 1 in 10 Canadians have contemplated suicide since the pandemic began. There have actually been 3 suicides in Souq in the past month. And it's predicted by a lot of agencies that after COVID is even done, that there will be a tsunami of psychiatric illness due to the long-term effects that COVID has brought up. So we're looking at kind of a longer-term issue here. Substance use, 30% of Canadians have increased their alcohol and cannabis consumption, and opiate overdose cases in BC have more than doubled since the start of the pandemic. So there has been a substantial increase in mental health issues in the past 12 months. Now, this has affected disproportionately our vulnerable members of society. So there's been a 30% increase in reports of intimate partner violence at a time when there are less supports or options available for these people. Women, Indigenous and low-income families have been disproportionately affected. They have many more losing their jobs. The minimum wage jobs are fewer. The people who are most at risk are the ones that can least afford the support of counselling programs. That's why our low-cost counselling is vitally important at this time. And I'll be honest, we're in crisis. Many of our funding sources have dried up due to the redirection of funds to COVID relief. So help from yourself really actually helps with our larger funding applications, as they like to see there is support from the local community for our programs. So we're asking, I mean, we realize you can't support wages or travel or anything like that, but obviously we have computer costs, we have rental costs, there's many different other costs that are associated with the program. So yeah, so that's all I have to say, unless there is any questions about that.
Thank you very much for your presentation. If you wouldn't mind just to stop screen sharing, and then I can see all of council, but certainly appreciate.
Did it. Okay, thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Just certainly appreciate your sharing what's happening here locally. That's really important for us to know what's going on. Okay, questions from members of council? For a second time, and you don't have to ask them. I'm just making sure they know that sometimes there's a delay. Okay. Are you presenting as well for the prenatal program?
No, that's my associate, Daphne, but I'll be back again for the youth program after that.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining. We'll see you shortly, or we'll see you soon tonight. And then I'll just ask Ms. Daphne Riemann to join us, please, for item 514. This is the prenatal program, also from the Sooke Family Resource Society.
Hello, are you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity as well to represent Sooke Family Resource Society. I am Daphne, and just to share as well, again, we are a nonprofit service agency supporting families and individuals in the South Island, and the majority of our services are in Sooke. 11 years ago, we began to address a gap in service in our community and developed a prenatal education and outreach program that works in partnership with our local doctors, midwives, and public health nurses. To this day, this service would not exist without support from grant-based funding, which continues to be the main way this support service is available and accessible to Sooke families. Many families that access the prenatal program are struggling with more than one identified social determinant of health, which includes mental health challenges, domestic violence, MCFD involvement, living with a disability, unstable housing, substance use impacts, poverty, living in isolation, transportation, and food security issues. Today, I would like to share a story of a current Sooke prenatal program participant who I will call T while sharing her story. T is a 39-year-old woman who is having her third baby. Her older children are young adults. T was referred to the SFRS prenatal program at 30 weeks gestation. She had been living on the street, and after a traumatic criminal event, she was admitted to the hospital, where she was told she was approximately 26 weeks pregnant. At the time she was referred to the SFRS prenatal program, she was homeless and addicted to heroin. T was able to stop using heroin with the use of the methadone program and was able to move in with her parents. Our prenatal outreach worker was able to connect her with Narcotics Anonymous and one-to-one counseling through Pacific Center Family Services. T had her baby and was doing quite well and utilizing services from the prenatal outreach worker. Unfortunately, when the COVID pandemic hit, T lost many of her in-person support services specific to her addiction. She relapsed and started using heroin again. This was a very difficult situation, and MCFD Child Protection was involved. T was allowed to continue care for her child as long as she and her child remained in her parents' home. Yet circumstances with T further deteriorated. Hesitant in the past, at this time, T did agree to go to substance use treatment. Working together with the prenatal outreach worker, it took dedicated time to complete the 30-page intake application for treatment. After being on a 2-month wait list and a near-death overdose, T was admitted to attend a treatment facility in Vancouver. T is still in treatment today and is about to complete the 70-day program. T has asked to continue to work with the prenatal outreach worker when she returns to Sooke for ongoing postnatal support. We will provide that service to her and transition her to the SFRS Family Support Program as her baby gets older. We really appreciate your time in listening to the circumstances of families in Sooke and the circumstances that people are encountering during this time. We appreciate the past funding that we've received, and we would like consideration for future funding. We are asking for support with the materials and supplies for this program that also include client supports. And those sorts of things include vitamins, baby equipment, and hygiene support for mom and baby, as well as car seats. And I'd be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing with us what's happening in Sooke. I think it's very eye-opening, and it's just confirms a lot of what we're hearing, actually. So thank you for this work, and this type of program gives children their best start, while also looking out for moms. So questions from members of council? Councillor Bateman, then St. Pierre.
Yes, I'm curious, are you two experiencing funding cutbacks due to COVID relief efforts elsewhere?
So some of the larger grantors in our region are only opening up grants this year for COVID relief as opposed to community grants, which are how we typically fund these types of programs. So we are in conversation with those larger granting organizations to see how we might be able to apply under those areas. Yeah, it is very challenging when there has been a large redirection of funds at this time away from actually often direct services.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor St. Pierre.
I'm curious as to how much of your funding is actually provided by the province at all, given that it seems like this should be within their funding envelope.
That's a fabulous question. And for the prenatal program, there is not any funding provided by the province. We had to run the program for 6 years before we could prove to VHA that they needed to put some support into our community for prenatal services. They have subsequently provided a different program that we do run as well called Best Babies that supports a very limited number of targeted clients per year. It supports 7 clients at any given time, so about 20 clients a year. And our prenatal program that is not targeted and is universally accessible supports between 30 and 70 prenatal families a year. We have about 180 babies born in Sooke per year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your application and for joining with us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so 5:15 is the Youth Navigator. So I'll welcome Ms. Parkinson back. Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Hi again. So this is another one of our programs. The Youth Navigator and Outreach program has been running in Sooke for many, many years. Each year it's a bit of a scramble for funds. We get some funding from the Ministry of Child and Family Development and a very small amount from Island Health. Probably enough for 2.5 days a week, and we have a worker working 4 days a week. So we are always applying for grants for this as well. So I'm just going to share again, if I can do that. Are you able to see that? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a no-cost support and outreach service for youth aged 13 to 19 years. So our youth worker goes out to schools, meets youth in the community or where they're at, and offers a support service for whatever it is that they might be going through. So it might be that they're struggling with school, with home, housing, mental health, addiction, substance use, could be a whole number of things. It's often kids who don't have support at home, who are struggling with some kind of mental health issue. And we often keep the youth for many months while we help them get back on their feet and get the resources that they need. We have seen, again, a 30% increase approximately in the demand for services, and we have a substantial wait list. We've probably got a 6 to 8 month wait list right now through our Youth Navigator program. In general, as far as the pandemic goes, young people have seen an average of a 50% increase in anxiety, depression, irritability, and a 50% decrease in attention span. And we have definitely seen this in Souq. In fact, we would say anxiety levels in youth are through the roof right now. It's really a very difficult situation. So again, in Souq, we're experiencing about 80% of the youth are saying they're bored. There's been a 90% increase in the use of social media. Young people are feeling a significant loss of social time, which increases feelings of isolation and loneliness. They're saying that they have a loss of hope about the future and a feeling of what's the point. Family tension is higher during more time spent at home. This is particularly difficult in families where there is a lot of conflict. Anxiety related to attending school in person or virtually, the changing, the back and forth is difficult on young people, and there's limited access to other support systems that they would normally get. So that's what the young people and youth are telling us. There's been a 90% increase in young people being referred to eating disorder clinics in Canada, and we have seen that in our clientele as well, particularly in young girls. Suicide attempts by young people is 3 times what it normally is. And again, it's predicted that after COVID, we're going to see a lot of these issues come out again. Once kids get back into school, once they are able to be seen by different people, doctors, teachers, other people in the community, then we're really going to see the extent of what's been happening. Cannabis and alcohol use has substantially increased against young people, and now a lot of kids are doing it on their own rather than before they would perhaps do it socially. So that's a change, and that's a bit of a concern for us because that's often the start of problem behaviours. And substance use disorders have doubled amongst young people.
4-minute warning.
Again, it's more affecting the vulnerable people in society. So young women, younger youth, and youth particularly in lower income families that were already struggling. Yeah, so again, we're in crisis and much of our funding is dried up, and young people have been really hard hit by the pandemic and they're in urgent need of support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again for sharing what's happening. I'll ask, I see Councillor St. Pierre, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I'm curious about the wait list and whether or not your program will be able to actually effectively address the wait list with the funding that you're looking at from various agencies and various sources.
Yeah, well, our problem is now because there's so many kids in crisis that we don't want to let them go, right? We don't want to let them out of the system while there is nowhere else to send them right now because the other supports are so far down. Yeah, I mean, we are looking at employing another youth worker if we can find the funding. So yeah, I mean, that's our hope, and we were able at the end of last year to get a temporary COVID relief funding until the end of March, but that has run out now. That's why our wait list has suddenly got longer again. But yeah, we're continually applying for funds because there's a lot of kids out there that just we can't service. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and for your work.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Other questions? Councillor Bateman?
Yes, thank you for your work indeed. Mary Dunn shared the youth engagement study the other week with us, and yes, many of the issues you've highlighted, but more dramatically so tonight. I'm curious, the Youth Navigator currently, do you have 5 days a week coverage?
4 days.
Even with this vast 4 days?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we managed to secure some United Way funding that sort of has built us up with the other 2 funding sources to 4 days a week. Yeah.
Has the Sooke Family Resource Society ever had a service agreement with the District of Sooke, to your knowledge?
We have had funding through the District of Sooke. Have they ever funded the Youth Navigator program? I am not 100% sure on that one. Certainly not in the last few years, but
I don't believe there's been an actual service agreement in place. And certainly not in my memory since 2008. We have provided the grants, but not
a service agreement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, seeing nothing further from council, thank you very much for your work and just supporting and echoing what council has said, and certainly for all the information that you shared in addition to your application.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up is 5.16 or 5.16, the Souq Festival Society. And
point of order, do we need to wait for Councillor Logan's?
Yes, thank you. That is correct. So I see Mr. Jonason is here, and here comes Councillor Logan's entering back in. Okay, welcome back, and go ahead, please, to the presenter.
Thank you. Your Worship, members of council, and all others present, thank you for hearing from all the applicants today. I believe you already know what we are all about with the Souq Music Festival. We are aiming to present our 6th edition of our family-friendly music and art festival this end of summer. This edition, like our last, will be virtual presentation. Quite simply, we are continuing on and hope to present a full-on community festival in 2022. We are hopeful Souq Council can help us present this year's online festival and help us continue our slow and steady growth into the future. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, so questions from members of council, please. Councillor Bateman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Johansson. Your application doesn't include an actual ask for funding.
Great question. It did when I filled it in, but I noticed here it doesn't actually show anything in my budget and in my ask. My ask was actually for $3,000.
Okay.
And did it indicate where the expenses were going?
It did not. I've sent along a tentative budget, and it's basically into our operating expenses for the festival. We receive funding from the feds now. But speaking with them today, it's looking pretty good for this year. We still don't know, but it's all contingent upon receiving city support of some type.
Your Worship, if I may.
Okay. Yes.
There is a tentative budget attached as the 3rd attachment to the report in the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. So council, you'll find it as the 3rd bullet. I'll go to Councillor Logan's next.
Thank you. Thanks for your application and for being here tonight. My question was, oh dear, I've lost it already. With COVID restrictions currently in place, I know you did make changes last year. What is your plan for this year?
Last year, we did an online festival. So what we basically did is we had a small gathering of the bands and a few friends, and then we videotaped the whole thing and put it online, and now have content as well for our sort of festival society for future. And we're intending to do virtually the same type of thing. So an online version.
Okay. And so when you say operating costs, what does that mean for an online version?
Well, we still have to pay our technicians. We pay our bands. We feed people. We are going to have a venue rental because our location is likely not to be there beyond another month or two. So I've included sort of additional costs that are going to be above and beyond what they would be in our current location. So I've reached out to a couple different locations, and that's also another issue that I have is where are we going to do this? I don't know yet. but I have made some efforts in those directions to try to find a location to do this, and for that matter, future festivals as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Bettles, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I see your performer is $8,000. In fact, the majority of your ask is for wages. Can you break it down? I mean, you're asking us for $3,000. What would you spend that $3,000 on?
Well, luckily, wages is to be paid out of Canada Heritage. So all of the performers, all of the acts, and any type of technician is definitely paid out of Canada Heritage. That's part of their program, is they actually want to promote that end of the business. So the city contribution would go towards more of infrastructure, porta potties, insurance, that type of a thing, as opposed to wages.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone, and thank you, Mr. Johansson, for joining with us. We'll be in touch again. Thank you. Okay, next up is 517, and that is the Sioux Harbor Players Society, and we have Mr. Andrew Donnelly as the contact, please. Do I have Sioux Harbor Players?
Your Worship, I don't see Mr. Donnelly in the participants list unless there's somebody else that's joined for the Sioux Harbor Players.
Okay, anyone from Sioux Harbor Players? Okay, so I'll do another call out in the next while. For now, we'll just move on to Sioux Region Food Chief, please. So Sioux Region Food Chief, and I have as a contact Ms. Anita Waziuta.
Councillor Bateman, I think you need to mute yourself.
Sioux Food Chief? Oh, there we are. Thank you.
There we are.
Welcome. And welcome, and go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll just pull our PowerPoint up just a moment. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Not yet, no.
Okay, sorry.
I'm not seeing a screen share.
Your Worship, I do have a copy as a backup if the applicant isn't able to get it going.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Temple, maybe go ahead, please.
Thank you.
You could do that. Thank you. Okay, maybe can you put it into slides? Perfect, and then you'll just need to indicate, I think, to Ms. Temple, next slide type of thing. But go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Greetings, everyone. My name is Anita Waziuta, and I come to this meeting as a rep from the Sioux Regional Food Chief Society. On behalf of Food Chief, I'm here to ask for a grant of $1,600 to create a short film documentary on the building of the community gardens and orchard located on Phillips Road. I'd like to give just a brief background. In 2009, the District of Souk's planning staff and other Sioux citizens saw the potential of 2.5 acres that was allotted to the district with the newly built Sun River neighborhood. The Food Chief organization was established in the same year, so the timing was pretty good. The success of the building of the garden was due to the Food Chief supporters, the community's interest in the local food movement, and the willingness of supporters in the community's interest in the local food movement. Can I have the next slide, please? So here's kind of what we started out with, and it's a lot of gravel there. Next slide, please. So I'd like to talk about the purpose of this short documentary. It's really quite broad. First of all, we want to inspire others in the food security through storytelling that becomes a part of Souq's regional oral history as well. Here you can see where we've got the gazebo getting built, the apple learning shack in the bottom there, the allotment plots from a high perspective, and the harvest shed. And it's all with the volunteers and the helping hands, as you can see in the middle there. The next slide, please. We also wanted to, one of the purposes for this documentary is to document our collaborative partnerships, our funders, and our proud community of volunteers. And we did that through different events. In this case, it was a festival that we were having. And then we also did it for a lot of the other projects and programs that were coming in. So here we were getting sponsors to come in and meet the volunteers and just see the gardens that were always blown away. The next slide, please. This is another one of our purposes, is to educate others on how to engage volunteers and potential partners for more garden sites. What we're also wanting to do is build on the education of the land use and the climate change committees, as food security is both important to that area. So if our request is granted, this summer, a Souq videographer with the assistance of several Souq food chief founders and will interview the key players who were part of the successful story in building the gardens from 2010 to 2014. The film will tell the stories and explain the engagement activities that were the beginnings of the community garden. It will celebrate the community story as well as legendary Souq volunteerism, which was very high and still is, and community investments and partnerships in the local food movement. It will also serve as a model for a collaboration and the empowerment of future gardens as Souq's pace of growth and thus demand increases for having more gardens, etc., to grow their own food, which we're definitely seeing over this past year with COVID. The viewing of the film will be made possible online through various community web portals and for special community presentations such as the Awareness Film Night. As I was looking at our application, I noticed that there was an error in it, so I'd like to get that, I just want to chat about that. It indicated that it was $100 for in-kind for storyboarding, prepping the storytellers, and pulling together the visuals. This was incorrect. It should be $1,000 in kind, as there will be many hours of volunteer time to pull all this together for the videographer and prep the storytellers as well. Finally, I would like to recognize that without the initial District of Souq's political will and trust to a group of foodies to create a community garden, we would not have this gem that now supports over 90 allotment plots, a community orchard, festivals, children's garden club, growing food for helping agencies, and education in growing, maintaining, and harvesting of food crops. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You forgot about the Apple Festival and apple pie. Sort of get caught up in a bidding war on those pies every year, but a lot of fond memories for sure. So what a wonderful idea. Okay, Councillor Logans, please.
Yes, thank you very much for your presentation. I love looking through the photographs. It reminded me of summer and also better times with hanging out with folks and coming to the gardens. I have one comment and one question. One, there is a calculation, I don't know off the top of my head, but there is a formula to calculate in-kind hours so that you can put it in as an expense and balance your budget just for next time. But in-kind amount, that's awesome to have such support from the community. If we're unable to fund the full amount of this grant, are there other sources of funding?
Yes, we are going to tap into some of the founders. They were interested in donating, and then we'll search out some more funds.
Awesome. Great. I'm excited. I hope this project goes ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from any members of council? Councillor St. Pierre, go ahead.
I'd just like to confirm something. At $400, doesn't seem like the videography will be paid. I assume this is actually not a per hour payment, but rather a slightly different arrangement. Could you maybe expand on that a little?
It's will be more of an honorarium rather than an hourly. And that's where we're hoping to get some other folks donating for that part of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really like that first picture, and I think back to the concept that was presented at council so many years ago, and it's just lovely to see this become a reality and just more than that. Truly a treasure. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight, and as I've said to the other applicants, we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next up is item 19, is the Sioux Shelter Society. So I'd like to welcome representative from the Sioux Shelter Society, Sherry Thompson.
No, it's Shadley Taylor today, sorry.
Okay, very good. No, that's fine. Welcome. Go ahead, please. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this evening. My name is Shadley Taylor. I'm the Operations Manager for the Sioux Shelter Society. We currently provide housing and shelter for 19 residents, and we're moving to the Hope Center and hopefully moving into long-term housing with these people. Our goal is to ensure that all people in the Sioux region have access to the very basic human needs like food, water, shelter, safe, affordable housing, appropriate long-term housing as well, with wraparound services. And the money that we're asking for would enable us to respond to the needs of the homeless community and ones with lower incomes across the Sioux region. And we will be able to support the most vulnerable with basics like food vouchers from grocery stores, bus tickets, taxi vouchers to medical appointments in Victoria and back, storage rental assistance, the very basics and outdoor living supplies, as in if we don't have beds and shelters to provide for these people, we can give them tents and sleeping bags and a bottle of water. So the very, very basics. And what we're looking at right now in Souq is we're providing support for over 100 homeless people right now. And that number has gone up 30% since the pandemic. And we are seeing numbers really, really high now. Unseen actually across the region. Homelessness is an epidemic right now. We are just asking for assistance with food, clothing, and shelter so that we can provide more outreach services to the community. Right now, it's basically a volunteer situation because we've just lost our funding. We are currently in negotiations with BC Housing to get more funding and grants. We're applying for grants as well, but right now we're just asking for whatever you can give us to help with the bus tickets and the groceries and the food vouchers right now. And that's about it. I can give you statistics of, we have 30% Indigenous, the homeless people in Souq. We've got 15% are seniors, 44% are females, and of those seniors, 55% are male. So these supports that we can give them will go a long way. I think a bottle of water and a sleeping bag and a tent can change somebody's life in 5 minutes. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. So questions from members of council. Councillor Lajeunesse.
Yeah, of the increase in the number of homeless people, are they all Souq local people, or are you seeing an influx of people from outside of Souq?
Most of them are Souq. We do have we have some people that come in from Langford and Victoria, and briefly, and then they'll head back out to different shelters in Langford. The majority are actual Sioux people. And then we also have, that doesn't count the families that are homeless as well. And yeah, we don't have statistics on that, but we are seeing whole families being uprooted now and not having and seeking our supports, as in food, shelter, and clothing.
Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, thanks for your work and the presentation. Just last night at Council, we approved the district being the fiscal host, or the host for a grant application for the Strengthening Communities program, which, if all goes well, will deliver $450,000 to the Shelter Society. So there's no guarantee of that, of course. And I don't know, do you know when, if indeed you do hear positively, when that would happen?
They said right away they would let us know. I don't know what that means though, if that's a week or a couple of days. That would also, that funding would be for well needed, but it would be for support staff and a lot of like staffing that we would need to put into place.
Along with a lot of other options.
Yeah.
It's a very wide open. So
yeah,
much of what you're asking for tonight would be covered by that. I wonder, through you, your worship, to staff, whether the grant approvals can be conditional. If indeed the Shelter Society gets its $450,000, and if it doesn't, then we would certainly want to contribute, as we have in the past.
Yeah, that is the will of council. That certainly has been the case, because certainly there has been times where different projects, different groups were waiting to find out, and it was just a matter of timing. So that has been the case in the past. That is the will of council.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor St. Pierre?
I'd just like to confirm one of the line items in your budget, and that's the bus tickets. I have experience working in social service agencies that funding for bus tickets was extremely difficult. Do you have any other options for bus tickets specifically?
No, that's hilarious that you'd ask that specifically, because I just bought them today. So no, they're on a donation basis pretty much if we don't get funding for them.
Right, and so that means that people that need them can't get to doctor's appointments
or
anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Ms. Taylor, for the work that you're doing, and please pass on our regards to everyone else there as well. And thank you for joining with us tonight.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, item 5.20 is the Souq tennis and pickleball. So welcome to Ms. Marilyn Erickson, please.
Hello. Am I there?
Yes, there you are.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought that I had a touch screen on my laptop.
That happens to all of us, yes.
I'm happy to speak to you and what's been going on with our group. We missed bringing you up to date last year. We were locked down for half the year. The courts were locked down. As you know, we've been bringing awareness to the fact that we have pickleball in Souq now. And I think that we made it so popular that we now have over 175 members using the courts. And when pre-COVID, we had lineups, wait lists of 20 to 40 people waiting to play on our 2 courts. At the same time, we had school groups coming over and the public wanting to play. And we've been very fortunate to have such an active group, predominantly seniors who are now worried about safety. And our courts, as you know, are nearly 40 years old. They're disintegrating, and we think it's a community asset we absolutely have to save. And so to that end, we're happy to announce that we've just had a commitment of $15,000 for resurfacing 1 court, with the hope of transforming it into 3 pickleball courts sideways, as you can see in one of the photos. And to do that, we have to begin the prep work. We could pay a contractor to do it, or we can use local people and volunteers, which we decided to do. So our ask is for $7,000 to begin that work of drilling out the posts in one tennis court, re-drilling 3-foot deep, 2-foot wide, 6 posts like that, and cementing them in, power washing the courts, leveling and patching. And that's what we're prepared to do. We hope to do it by summer. The contractors for surfacing are booked up for a year because of the popularity now of pickleball. We have 107 courts on the island from the last time we spoke. Kerry Park has just put in a request for 6 more. That's been approved. And Parksville was able to get a federal grant, part of maybe the gas money or something that was sent out, COVID money. And they're putting in 17 courts with washrooms, and it will be quite a big facility. So as you can see, from Crofton to Central Saanich, people are demanding more courts because we have such a lot of players that even come out from Victoria to play here because they can't find court time there. Don't know what more I can tell you. The need is there. You've got some testimonials. I've got 17 testimonials here that just came in the last few days, mostly from seniors worried about the surface and saying that Souq should certainly keep up with other communities, because when you play on different surfaces, the ball reacts differently. So competitively, it's very difficult to go from court to court to play if you're playing asphalt to a resurfaced plexi-plate acrylic court, which all the new courts are. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much for your presentation today and for building up the sport here in Souq. So, questions, Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for your presentation. You're aware that Sea Park, on behalf of the District of Souq, is putting in a sports box up Sun Riverway. Have you had any input on that, or
I certainly have.
That's a multi-use spot. It's not just,
I've spoken to both Mike Hicks and Steve Noki about it, and it will not have, as plans are for now, pickleball. It's a multi-sport court. I think there's basketball, tennis, lacrosse, and hockey, floor hockey. There are ways to put a pickleball court in the middle of that with temporary nets, but so far that's not in the works. However, Mike Hicks did tell me he's putting 2 pickleball courts on the old tennis courts out in Port Renfrew, and spending $100,000 on that. He said he spent enough in Souq. He couldn't help us out, regretfully, but he supports what we're doing. And he feels that pickleball now is really important to serve the needs of seniors here, because there's not that much opportunity right now for seniors to be outdoors and be safe. And this is proved so popular.
Thank you. Other questions from councillors? Councillor St. Pierre, then Bateman.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious as to the ask at $7,000, and as we've been asking all night long, what would you be able to do potentially with less? Would you be able to move ahead? Would you be able to get ready for your resurfacing in any way? Do you have other options in terms of funding?
Well, I sort of itemized it after the fact because we've had some new quotes come in. So the first thing we'll need is $2,500 for sure for cement and to take the posts out and so on to level. The other thing would be so new poles and equipment for it. So I think I added that in there for $2,500. We can leave out the power washing and the benches now. The power washing will be included in the $15,000.
Minimum is 5.
And I guess the minimum we could use would be $5,000 to get started.
Thank you for that information. And I'm just going to note that since the last time you visited, you've done a lot in terms of fundraising and so on and stepping up.
Yes.
Great work on that. I was curious, one thing that did come up, and I think it was actually Councillor Beddoes that mentioned it, was whether or not you had the option of either user fees or membership fees to help with your funding and your budget.
Well, with all respect, these are public courts, and Sioux Community Association will not allow us to charge anyone, even if we had lessons or so on. They all it has to be an honorarium that we give a coach, which we do. We offer free lessons, and that's why we have so many new members, I think. But no, we can't charge. We do receive donations, and I write grants for operational funding, so on.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, thanks. I haven't played pickleball yet, but I know it's in my future.
We've invited you out.
Have you? Okay. I'm sure Janet Evans could take me out. I was going to mention about Mike Hicks and the CRD grants and aid, and I'm glad you've spoken to him. You know, I think the gas tax has been doubled again this year. So you might want to go back to him, because I was thinking, you know, with Art Moore's Field in 2019, the Community Association and the Fastball Association, the district and the JDF combined on that project to resurface the field. And I think that was done at the usual 70-30 split in terms of the district and JDF, because I'm sure you have a Sioux region clientele playing pickleball.
It's mostly all local players. We have some from Machosen and East Sioux and Shirley, but to that end, baseball and soccer, those fields and the baseball diamonds seem to get all the money. We have never had a cent from Sioux Community Association. We've asked for partnerships from the school district, from Rotary gave us a net. We've asked for partnerships to access gaming grants. We can't seem to find anyone to sign on with us to partner for larger grants, or, I mean, $100,000 is what he's spending on the courts out in Port Renfrew. So our ask really isn't that great. 30,000 would do both courts, but we're just doing one. To me, this is an asset that is underutilized and not funded. And I don't know what more we can do to encourage people to donate.
Well, I would advise you to keep the pressure up. I do note that the Community Association is down on your list of revenue for $7,000.
They've just given us 15,000. So now we just, they upped that, and now we need the 7 to finish. Okay. And we could be playing by summer.
Well, put that formal CRD grant and aid application in. Just give it another shot. Thank you.
I actually just put it in, and it was rejected. Okay. It was rejected.
Okay.
So they said they've given Sooke enough. That's what they said.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much for joining with us tonight, Ms. Erickson. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next up is item 5.21, Souq Transition Town Society. Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'll recuse myself as a member of the Multi-Belief Initiative.
Okay, we'll be in touch when you're ready. And welcome, Mr. Ziegler. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much for seeing me tonight. Yes, we're here I'm here on behalf of the Souq Multi-Belief Initiative, which is a working group of the Souq Transition Town Society. And we have a real opportunity, unique opportunity. Charter for Compassion International, which is a global organization representing communities where individuals have come together in sort of grassroots ways to create a compassionate action plan to address the social needs of each community. And Souq is one of 104 communities where the local government, the district of Souq in our case, has approved a compassionate action plan that was developed in a grassroots way in Souq. And back in April of 2019, we were approved, and we were surprised when we did our 1-year update and sent it to Charter for Compassion International that they invited us to give a webinar. So far, we're the only smaller community to be asked to do this, and a webinar this spring on the work the progress that's been achieved in each of the 5 sort of areas of focus within the Sioux Compassionate Action Plan, and their homelessness, affordability, social isolation, health, medical services, and the need for greater collaboration between service groups and agencies. And our 1-year report showed that we had made considerable progress. And they would like us to give this webinar, and June 21st is the tentative date for this webinar that's going to be shown internationally. And what I'm here to request for tonight is $750 to allow us to fully produce a video for inclusion in the webinar. The video overall, which would be made by a fellow called Dan Baker, and he's a local filmmaker. He has a company called Guided Films. He's really excellent. This video would be included in the webinar and presented to really highlight what's being achieved. And we would be doing interviews in each of the 5 areas, plus hopefully have an introduction. We're going to ask Mayor Tait if she'd like to be involved, and really demonstrate globally what is underway in Souq, and it's a good news story. But another benefit of completing this video is that it would be an ongoing, have ongoing value in terms of presenting to the world how we do have a compassionate action plan. We are a compassionate community. Within our group, and with the help of Souq Transition Town, we've been able to raise $1,050 of the $1,800, which is about 60% of the $1,800. And we could go ahead on a sort of reduced scale to produce a video with that $1,050, but we would not be able to give full attention to the work that's being achieved, for instance, in areas like homelessness and affordability. And and we're not claiming to be achieving all these wonderful things ourselves. It's the community overall, and the District of Souq has been instrumental in helping us to move forward. That's basically where we stand. We're requesting $750 to allow us to fully create this video for inclusion in a webinar that is going to be seen globally.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler, and thank you for sharing, telling the story so that and others can know of all the wonderful work that's happening here. Questions from members of council? See none, so that means you've kind of addressed it all, both in your submission and your verbal presentation tonight. So thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Ziegler. And as always, we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as we're transitioning to the next, my screen seems to have frozen here. We'll have Councillor Bateman. I'm just shutting my video off. Councillor Bateman join us back. Can someone just reply? Are you hearing me? Because mine's completely frozen here.
I can hear you. If you click on another person's video, you can see. I think it's, at least that's working for me. It looks like just a screen frozen.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that's better.
The screen is frozen.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so is Councillor Bateman returned? Let's just have him return, and then thank you for queuing up for our next presentation, which will be the Sun River Community Gardens, item 5.22, and there's Councillor Bateman. So go ahead, please, Ms. Eastgard. Thank you for joining us.
Wonderful, thanks everyone. I'm just gonna share my screen. Can everybody confirm that you're seeing my presenter view?
Yes.
Perfect. And I'm not sure if my video is on. It might be. So anyway, hi everybody, thank you so much for meeting with us today. My name is Christine Eastgard. I'm the Secretary and Treasurer of the Sun River Community Garden Society. I'm here with our President, Jill Hickson. We've applied for 2 grants, so we'll do the first one on the irrigation, answer some questions, and then move into the other one. But before we discuss the grants, we wanted to talk a little bit about the gardens. So history of the gardens, as many of you know, it's been a long fixture in Sooke. It was established by the Souq Region Fuchi Society back in 2006. And our garden council has managed the gardens since that time. And we managed it with the intention of eventually becoming our own society. So this past December, really exciting news, we incorporated under the BC Societies Act. So really what's changed, really not all that much. You know, we still manage the gardens as we normally do, but right now what it means is we also manage the membership fees and the financials. So that means that we can reinvest the membership funds much more efficiently back into the gardens and invest in the community. So why do we exist? What's the purpose of the gardens? What I wanted to do is just really tell you a story. So this little gal here is my niece Quinn. They live in Vancouver in a densely urban area with a really tiny backyard. And you know, she's also Quinn is also very autistic, so she's quite high on the spectrum there, and that means that she processes and sees the world very differently than many of us. So for example, if you were to ask Quinn to tell you about Souq, normally kids would say, you know, things like that's where grandma, grandpa, and auntie live. But what Quinn will tell you, and these are her exact words, is Souq is the place where people and animals live in harmony. So you can think about it, when she pulled her first potato out at the gardens, it completely changed her world because she made this really kinesthetic, deep connection that food comes from the earth. And so now every harvest she comes out to Souq and she helps us, she organizes us, she leads the whole thing. We have a bunch of vegetables that have to go to the food bank according to Quinn, food that goes to her family, and then food that comes to my family. They've also built their own microplot in their little house in Vancouver. And so her and my brother garden year round now, and they absolutely brings them so much joy. So when you think about, you know, why we exist, we're here to help people reconnect with the earth. We have a diverse group of membership, and it's really about fostering and building an amazing, inclusive community at the gardens, not only that is in harmony with each other, but also is really much in harmony with nature. And if you ever have a chance to go down there, you know, you can just go down and the ravens are talking to you in the trees, and the robins follow you as you dig your plot over and steal the worms. It's a pretty special place. So you know, and that's really why we wanted to make sure we formed a society and we work so hard to manage the gardens, is to really maintain that specialness and continue to grow the community. So when it comes to the grants, we'd really appreciate some support from the district on 2 areas. So the first grant is around the irrigation. So the gardens is located on the old pasture land from the old Phillips farm. It's quite a deep clay table on it. And so we have a couple of swales at the north end of the garden that handle the drainage. But as you know, climate change is real. And although we still get the similar amount of rain that we do in Souq, it's now coming in these big torrential downpours. So certain areas of the plots are flooding up to a foot. We're losing a lot of the soil and the nutrients. You can see some of the photos there. We've dug emergency trenches and stuff to just route the water. So we just really appreciate the volunteers are going to do the work and dig the trenches. We just appreciate some materials support to purchase some drainage rocks, some piping and landscape fabric. It's going to be a very simple project, but basically it's just going to help move that water into those existing swales. So I'll just stop there before moving to the other grant and see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Councillor St. Pierre, go ahead.
Just curious what kind of piping you require.
We were looking at the perforated piping, and then we were looking at considering wrapping it in the landscape fabric, just so that it's gonna allow the water out, but also flow through, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Councillor Logans.
Thank you for your presentation and the work you do in the gardens. Hopefully we can have some events back there again one day soon. I'm curious if you've asked Home Hardware and Sooke Soil for donations. I know that they've donated to our community before.
Yeah, we haven't approached them for donations yet, but that's a really great idea.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Any other counselors? Maybe just speak up. Councillor St. Pierre for a second time.
I just had one more question in terms of why you need the funding, and it's an ongoing theme tonight. Has COVID affected you, for example, in terms of not being able to run festivals or actually access funding that would normally be available to the community gardens, or is this completely separate?
Yeah, super great question. So we supply, so it's our first year as a society, so we don't have our official financial statements published because we're just a couple months into our season. So we publish our budget there, so you can see sort of how we've allotted our funds to actually support running the gardens. Up until now, we collected the membership fees on behalf of the Sioux Region Fuchi Society. So there is a surplus of membership funds that are within the Sioux Region Fuchi Society. We're in negotiations around access to that funds. So I wouldn't guarantee any of that at this time. So we're just operating off of our membership fees for the 2021 season. In terms of COVID impact, we've actually seen a rise in our wait list in terms of people wanting to get into the gardens, wanting to reconnect with nature. So we're seeing far more interest. In terms of running events, our society doesn't run events to fundraise. We're solely funded on the membership fees that are brought in from the plot holders.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe please go ahead with your next grant request.
For sure. So the second one is what we're calling Growing Food for Souq. So the Gardens traditionally has grown food for the Souq Food Bank. We have a very long history of supporting the food bank with organic produce. The program was discontinued in 2019. It was run under the Fuchi Region Society, and they discontinued the program in 2019. We then decided to survey our members last year to find out what the interest was in restarting the program. And as you can see there, there's a really strong response to restarting the program. And as you know, at the district, I know you guys do a lot of surveys too. The numbers are always interesting, but it's usually the open text comments and what people say that we find the most compelling. And this is what some of our members had to say. They really feel proud to grow food for the community. It's important to contribute to Sioux families. We also have members that use the food bank themselves, and so they really have that immediate experience of the benefit of having organic produce available to them. So with the program this year, we're going to change it around a little bit. So the Sioux Food Bank gets a lot of donations already for produce. So we're going to focus on donating to the Sioux Meals on Wheels Society. For those of you that are not aware of them, they provide hot, nutritious food to people in Sioux at a really reasonable cost. It's for people that maybe have accessibility issues, people that are living on their own, that type of thing. So the grant ask here is just for us to start to restart the program. So the first part of that is shelving for the greenhouse. So as you can see, we have this amazing greenhouse. It is really great for growing tomatoes. It gets super hot in the summer, but it's not so great given the heat to grow other things. So we'd like to put some shelving in the greenhouse so we can start our seedlings, and then obviously some compost and seeds so that we can start up the program. So that's the other grant request that we have. And I guess I'll open it up to any questions around the Growing Food for Souq program.
Thank you. And actually, if you don't mind, if you could stop screen sharing and then I can see all of Council again.
Okay, hold on, let me just and show. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillors, questions, please. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I just want to comment. Your asks are relatively small in the scheme of things tonight, and it looks like you do a lot of wonderful things for the community. I just wanted to acknowledge that. A very, very, very good presentation and very sincere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said. Councillor Lajeunesse?
Yeah, I just have a comment as well, a couple comments. I would echo Councillor Beto's comments, but also you're looking for some landscape fabric. I have a 300-foot roll of industrial landscape fabric that's 15 feet by 300 feet, and I would be willing to chip that in if that was something that you could use.
Yes, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Well said, Councillor. Councillor St. Pierre?
My comment about the pipe was relevant. We're on the farm nearby, and we have probably several hundred feet of pipe that is not perforated, but could be perforated. So if you want to get in touch, we can talk about that.
Oh, we would love it. Thank you both so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you, councillors. And I'll just share that when I first got elected, I was told that it's impossible to grow anything in Sooke, and I didn't quite buy it. And this garden is sort of, and amongst other work that's happening out here, is sort of proves the point that no, you can grow a lot of things in Sooke. Actually, you just need to put in the time and effort. So thank you so much for supporting what I always thought, and it certainly has come true before my eyes. Okay, thank you very much for joining with us tonight, and we'll be in touch again soon. Thank you. Okay, next up is Souq Nation 5.24. We weren't 100% if we would have someone able to join us tonight, so I'll just ask if Christine George or another member from Souq is in the meeting.
Your Worship, I don't believe we have anyone from Souq Nation.
Okay, thank you. So move on to 5.25, the Vancouver Island South Film and Media Commission. And do we have a presenter from the Film Commission?
Yes, hi.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, just turning on my camera here.
There we are. Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you bet. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Globus. I'm Production Services Coordinator for the Vancouver Island South Film and Media Commission. The Film Commissioner, Kathleen Gilbert, couldn't attend this evening, so I'm here to present to you our community grant application for 2021. First of all, I want to thank you for your support in previous years. Sorry, 1 second, just going to turn my timer. This year, we've requested a grant of $2,000 to continue promoting the locations, crew, and services of the District of Sooke to the domestic and international film and television industry. We hope that you will consider granting this amount in full to invest in an industry with a substantial economic impact in the municipality and great potential for future growth. Established in 1972, the Film Commission is a nonprofit economic development office that promotes the southern regions of Vancouver Island to producers worldwide. Despite the COVID crisis and a 5-month industry-wide shutdown, 2020 was a record-breaking year for film production in the region, resulting in $55 million of direct spending. This surprising growth was a direct result of the hard work that our Film Commissioner, staff, and board did to promote the capital region in the years leading up to 2020. Sooke has seen an impact from increased production, most recently with the Netflix series Made, which filmed in the Silver Spray area, and the Hallmark TV movie The Wedding Veil, which is applying for permits this month. In recent years, we've helped network television series like C, starring Jason Momoa, come to Jordan River and use Sooke as their home base for over 300 crew. The rugged yet accessible shorelines, hotel and private rental properties in Sooke continue to attract productions like Disney's Descendants, The Nanny, which was a German television show, and feature films like Elsewhere. The activity is a direct result of Film Commission staff working with productions to scout locations in Sooke. The film industry in British Columbia currently brings in over $3 billion a year into the economy and employs 70,000 BC residents. It has the highest employment growth of any sector. This is very good news for the municipalities of the capital region. Studios in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland are at capacity. Productions are looking elsewhere in the province and naturally to the closest city center of Greater Victoria. In some contrast to that good news in BC and in our region, the Film Commission has experienced cuts in the last year to an already modest operating budget. Due to the COVID crisis, we struggled last year to keep our doors open due to reduced grants, sponsorships, and our inability to carry out our normal fundraising activities. With this in mind, please help us achieve our realistic goals of continuous production in the best year-round filming climate in the country, with a highly skilled crew base and a business community dedicated to serving the industry. In addition to marketing the region to film productions, we've also worked hard in recent years to expand the local crew base to offset the cost of productions of filming outside of the US and other regions. In 2020, we hosted the region's 4th annual Film and Media Production Career Fair. For the first time online, the event had 400 career seekers registered to hear from experienced working professionals about getting trained for this industry. We also host workshops and networking sessions throughout the year designed to assist local creatives and technicians to get started in the industry. We do all of our work with a staff of 3, 2 of which are hourly employees without health or benefits. Moving forward, 2 of our primary goals for our organization are to maintain 3 salaried positions and increase our marketing budget to be more proactive in our strategy to reach film producers worldwide. Thank you for your time this evening and for recognizing the potential of the film industry to make a positive economic and social impact in your community of Sooke.
Thank you very much for your time with us tonight. I was made aware after speaking with the production assistant from elsewhere, as well as our hotel, that their production was able to keep many of our locals employed through what would have been a typical layoff season. And just the hotel where crew and everyone could stay together was a real benefit as they were in town filming, and it created a lot of local excitement. It was just funny that after the actors left, suddenly they were spotted everywhere in town. Anyway, questions from members of council?
After they left, they were spotted.
They were. It's like, well, I saw so-and-so and I saw so-and-so and there are all these sightings. And I'm like, well, they actually left 2 weeks ago, but that's okay. That just adds to the magic of it all, right? Councillor Logans.
Thank you. I had a couple questions, but for some reason I can't find part of what I thought I had in here earlier. But you did mention that you had a deficit of over 50,000. What like how would we be funding this if not for the deficit? Like, are we funding the deficit? What's going on there?
Are you taking that from the grant application?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so that has partially changed since we submitted the application. The Film Commission, with the help of our treasurer, has applied for some relief. Salary relief for COVID, and has since been awarded those relief funds. So I think we haven't been able to release a new budget yet, but it looks like we're not going to have the deficit. We're going to be pretty close to breaking even. I wish I could give you exact numbers tonight, but I wasn't expecting to present. So, but I can follow up with those numbers.
No, I understand. Thank you. So, what exactly would the 2,000 be put towards?
Well, I mean the grants that we receive from Sooke always go towards the services that we provide in Sooke. So it's mainly maintaining our database of locations in Sooke and scouting new ones as they're needed.
So so are you saying that it's for staffing?
Sorry?
Are you saying then it's for staffing? If you're maintaining databases with the funding?
It's to maintain the services that we provide, including the database, but all the services that we provide to promote the locations in Sooke. So that includes the database and any scouting that needs to be done. There's basically it's the upkeep on all the tools that we use to promote the municipality.
It sounds like that's for staffing. Is it yes or no?
Well, it would be partially staffing and then partially, our infrastructure. So we have to pay a yearly fee for the database to keep it going and maintaining our website and all that. The technical side of that location gallery.
Okay, is there an amount for that you can give me? Because as you're aware, we can't fund staffing.
You don't fund operational.
No, we do not. Our policy prevents that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I would have to pull up the budget. Just give me 1 second here.
Thank you.
We'll go to Councillor McMath for your question, and then maybe we can answer it too.
Just given that Mr. Globus wasn't expecting to present tonight and not being well versed in the up-to-date numbers and the budget, perhaps they can send those updates and that breakdown to us at a later date. And then we can make our decision if we choose to fund and how much at that point, rather than just sort of going on speculation and guessing or assuming. Because from my perspective, the investment of $2,000 versus the economic investment that comes with it is worth it. It's just how are we able to support this group and what that looks like. So if you're unable to provide an accurate assessment, then perhaps you can send us that information at a later date.
Yeah, okay, we can get that. We can get a follow-up there. Councillor Logans?
I'm just cognizant of the fact that other organizations, over 20 of them, have provided us with that information and those answers tonight. And when this one is it doesn't fit with our policy, it may be the case where we could do it from another funding source, but from this one, I don't see that that's the case. So if we're also allowing additional time to complete this application and it doesn't fit with the grant policy, then perhaps we have to pull from a different funding source and put this aside. But that's a decision of council, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say, I mean, we're very careful when with our grant applications to make sure that if they're not operational grants, that they are, that the funds are going towards, non-operational items. So I can't give you the exact number amounts or the dollar amounts, but the grant is directed towards the upkeep of the locations. That we represent and promote in Sooke. So it's not going towards salaries, it's going towards that upkeep.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor St. Pierre, then Bateman.
I expect we'll get better numbers in the future, and that's wonderful, but just looking at the information that's in front of me, it looks like out of a 237,000 plus budget, about 160,000 is on salaries and benefits, and the rest including all sorts of different things, which I assume many of which would be applicable to our policies. We'll see how it goes, and I'd like to see what you can bring forward with that, but I think that the information we have speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I asked this earlier of a applicant who was seeking funds from multiple CRD municipalities, and I see in your 2019 budget you got $100,000 from municipalities, and you've come to us seeking $2,000. Are you basing this on a per capita calculation?
No, I mean part of the asks have been based on historically what has been granted.
Okay.
what we've been told is, you know, the range that the grant ask should be. So, you know, I think last year the grants were not available, but the year previous to that, that was our ask. And, you know, coming out of this, you know, the COVID time when municipalities are just getting their programs, we didn't, you know, some of the municipalities we have increased the ask given the increased activity in the region, but we just wanted to keep it the same as we did last application.
Okay, thank you. And I guess the other point, I'm looking at the logos here on one of your information sheets, and Central Saanich is missing. If a municipality does not support the commission, I assume there would be no business sent their way.
Well, that is correct. I mean, we do represent the capital region, so we cannot, you know, if we don't get a grant, we're still going to be here to represent all the municipalities of the capital region, and because the locations there are an asset to all the other municipalities that that will have locations for that project. So we don't exclude anybody, but, you know, but we would hope that everybody would contribute to the marketing effort.
Well, thank you for bringing Hollywood North to the island. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. It's fun.
Okay. I think that's it for council questions. So thank you for making yourself available tonight, and for all the work that you're doing, and for joining with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we've received a note that the representative for 5.26, the Victoria Brain Injury Society, is unable to join with us tonight. I'm just going to go back and see if anyone from the Souq Harbor Players is here. I looked through the participants. I'm not seeing Mr. Donnelly, but I just thought I did say I would follow up, so I think that's it. And I thank those members of the public that are still with us now. So council, I'm just mindful of the time. It's 10:15. We've now heard all the presentations from those that are able to be with us tonight. As I mentioned earlier, we have two options. We can either continue meeting and deliberating over this. Another option would be that we move to postpone the deliberations to a future meeting date. I'm sensing, although I don't know this for certain, that our next Monday regular meeting is going to be a rather full agenda, and this sort of discussion will take a bit of time to go through. So I don't want to add it to the regular council meeting. I would rather look at potentially the Tuesday, April 26th April 27th as a special council meeting date for us to hold these deliberations. So I'll just see, I just want to see where you're all at. Councillor Logans?
Thank you. Yes, I love that idea, Mayor Tait. My brain is starting to freeze up. Definitely. My phone's told me several times it's past my bedtime, but I'm glad that we got through what we did. I think that it would be really great to sit back and deliberate. That also gives some folks some time to provide us additional information or seek out additional funding options in the meantime.
Perfect. Councillor McMath?
I agree. The Tuesday meeting sounds great. I would just ask that we as a group bring forward our budget allocation drafts to the meeting beforehand rather than us individually like debating line by line. That be like our homework that we complete beforehand, because I remember prior meetings where we started from scratch and that drew it out quite some time.
Yeah, you may want to still be prepared for that either way, but we'll see how we go. Yes, exactly. Councillor St. Pierre?
I also agree, but I have a question for staff that I should have asked previously, and I was just curious as to whether or not there was anything left in COVID relief that could potentially be pertinent for some of these asks. And I'd be glad to have an answer by email or by next Tuesday.
I'd rather sort of wait for that. What might be helpful for staff in the meantime is if you could just send out the details on how the COVID relief funds can be used, and where I think we could all just use a bit of a refresher. Just also with the doubling of the gas tax, again, just a refresher on how the funds could be used. I think that'll just help. I just recognizing the hour, and like like we have technology freezing. I'm with Councillor Logan's on this one. I would rather just sort of park this and get the information, and we can follow up with questions there. I see Councillor Bateman's and Beddoes.
Yeah, my mind's freezing up too, but there were a couple of instances where things were a bit fuzzy in terms of how a applicant intended to spend eligible expenses. So I'm wondering if those individuals could be asked to provide us with an itemized list prior to our decision.
Yeah, so what I'm going to ask you to do in those specific areas where you feel that is still outstanding is just shoot out an email to council and staff so that they can then follow up, and we can get that and then have it sort of as part of the supplemental information package, because then it should be received openly in a meeting at the next date. Councillor Beddoes, then St. Pierre.
Yeah, on the eligibility criteria, and I know Ebony's hit on this a number of times, and myself was very interested. A lot of these people don't make any of those 7 items that are listed as our criteria. How flexible are we in that? I mean, I would say several of them wouldn't even make that. You know, sports, recreation, fine arts and cultural heritage, public safety, community development, community beautification, environmental sustainability. A lot of them don't fall into that category at all. And I go back to maybe something that Councillor St. Pierre was saying in regards to some of these are very worthwhile and very needed, but they just don't fit this criteria of what we're doing here today. And is there another way that we can support some of these people, but we can't support them with this program the way this criteria reads? I mean, I see quite a few don't make it.
Okay, so I'll just share, and then perhaps again, we can get some more information from staff, likely corporate services in this regard. This is a policy set by council. We adopted this pre-COVID, and when the world was looking entirely different. So even as I read the policy, the scope is designed, the policy is designed to provide guidance to council regarding the administration of community grants and funds to serve as a resource for organizations. So I think, and I could be wrong, but this is where we do have, I think there is some flexibility to a certain degree. In some cases, perhaps not. And then we look at other sources and what do we have? What do we look at the COVID relief? Do we look at gas tax? Do we look at council contingency?
Yeah, that's where I was
service agreement, those sorts of things. So I think, yeah, I think we can get more information on that, and it'll help us prepare to give good deliberations in a week.
Yeah.
Does that help for now?
Well, yeah, some of these things I would support on a 1-year basis because of COVID. But again, I don't think this grant system that we have here doesn't allow for it. So, I mean, I think we do need to have some direction if there's another pot of money that we can use to help some of these groups out during this tough time, like other levels of government have done. Then I'd be interested in exploring that. But if we start looking at the strict criteria, half of them are going to fall off the map. So just something to consider. Some of these things are very worthwhile, and it's a tough time. And then also we have the facilities to help them all, but I'd like to look at it deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Logans?
Thank you. I see most, if not all of them, fitting into these categories, so perhaps it's a bit more subjective. But I think regardless of that, I I would prefer us to follow the policy as much as possible, since that's what our constituents are expecting of us with their tax dollars. Having said that, this is why in the report it said we have council contingency funds and sponsorship funds, and we should look first at following the policy as best we can and allocating our budget, which was also approved by the public, before going above and beyond and expanding our budget and including folks that may not fit into these categories or into the eligibility criteria through other funding sources.
Yeah,
and I agree. I think it is subjective, because I do feel from what I've heard that many, if not most of it, does qualify. So I think it's just how we're receiving that, and that's where I think I'd rather save that for a day when I'm not so frozen. Okay, I see Councillor Lajeunesse and then St. Pierre.
Yeah, I've been just kind of keeping a spreadsheet here of all the different asks, and we have in our community grants pot 65K, as I understand it, and I may have missed something when I stepped out there when Hydro showed up to cut my power off to fix my power line, but I've got a total of 110,000 and change, and I think these are all very worthy causes, some desperate, in fact, but so yeah, I think looking at some other sources that we could possibly fund some of these is a good idea, but we need to know what those sources are.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, I agree with Councillor Logans in terms of doing the utmost to follow the policy, and that's how the group's applied. So we'll have that at a future meeting. Councillor St. Pierre?
I'd just like to make a motion to table all of this to a future meeting.
So it'll be postponed.
Or postponed, but I think we need a motion, do we not, to?
Yeah, so a motion to postpone the deliberations of the community grant 2021 applications to Tuesday, to a special council meeting on Tuesday, April the 28th. Sorry, my screen's not in front of me. Next Tuesday, what is that? April 27th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Councillor St. Pierre, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McMath. So if you have other...
Tuesday is actually the 20th, is it not? We're on the 13th today.
Oh goodness.
Should be.
I'm jumping a week. Okay.
Now, 2 weeks from now.
That's why we should not deliberate right now.
No.
Give us the rest.
So was it then next week then? April
today is the 20th, 2 weeks is the 27th.
I'm happy with the 27th as the motion stands.
Perfect.
Okay, so I just wanted to because I was looking obviously at the wrong week. I just wanted to confirm that you all thought it was in 2 weeks time then?
I always thought it was 2 weeks from now, yeah.
Okay, I had it as next week, so.
There is a Climate Action Committee meeting on the 27th at 5. So as long as Councillor Bateman is good with that, I guess we can stand with the 27th.
It'll be 3 hours late.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Councillor Bateman, it's going to be a reality, but we all are going to deal with that at some point in time. Councillor Beddoes and I will be on another meeting later this Thursday, for example. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry, you're going to have to.
It is. Hey, just nothing new and reality bites.
Yeah, sorry.
Perfect.
I got enough of you all. I want to go.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we have a motion. It's been moved and seconded. So we're looking at 2 weeks. That gives us good time to do our homework, as Councillor McMath said, get the straggler pieces of information. And if you need to connect with staff just to get more clarity on the policy, I'd encourage you to do that. And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to call the question, please. All those in favor, please. Anyone opposed? None opposed. And on that, thank you again to everyone tonight, council and staff for the late hour. and members of the public that have stayed with us throughout the whole evening to hear all the presentations. It is a good way to learn what's happening around Sooke, and there's really Sooke-specific information that's shared. So on that note, I'll call for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor St. Pierre and seconded by Councillor McMath. Okay, everyone, get some good rest. All those in favor? Opposed. Good night, everyone. Thank you very much.